Namaste, everyone. How are you today? I see Mike's in the chat. Mike, good to see you. Big Al Brewski in the house. Good to see you, brother. Hope you're well down there. All right, we got 9 in the chat at the moment. Oh, Micah. Micah straight in on the hunt. Can everyone hear me okay? Everyone can hear me okay? Before we get into the questions, let me know where everyone is coming from. Drop a comment in the chat box. Let me know which location you're in. Say hello, so forth and so on. And I'll get to your question, Mike. I'll get to your question. Just see, Luther, how are you? Good to see you. You're always here, Luther. That's awesome. Miss Zen, much love. Sue, thank you. Mike, number 1. How's Carolina today, Mike? North Carolina, I should say. Aaron, nice to see you. Will, awesome. East Atlanta. I see a lot of familiar names. This is good, yeah? Excellent. So how is everyone today? Everyone is good? Australia today, it's a bit cloudy. A bit wet. Same thing. Krish, good to see you, my friend. Ohio is good. Awesome, Luther. Excellent. What's everyone? So it's all, everyone's in PM in the States, I guess. So all is well in North Carolina. That's awesome, Mike. One day I hope to get over there to see you, Mike. And like we discussed about speaking maybe at your university, I don't know. We were talking about that loosely. Will, sleepy, rainy, warm day. Awesome. Vintage Violet, Oregon. Good to have you with us. Just waiting for a few more people to come into the chat. We've got 19 in here at the moment. 19 people are in here, only 15 likes. Make sure you give it a thumbs up. I know a lot of people who watch my content are very contemplative people, so a lot of people don't give the thumbs up or comment on my videos. But it's very important that you do, because it helps the algorithm for YouTube. If you want people to see, more people to see my videos, you need to remember the YouTube algorithm is not very smart. So it needs all the help it can get. Ryan, Phoenix, good to have you with us, Ryan. Micah, angry storms in Omaha. Yeah, we in Brisbane here, there's been a lot of storms actually lately. Not many sunny days. Kind of reflects the mood, I guess. Munching violets and lemon balm from the yard. I'm actually, today I know a lot of you know this, that I drink this tea. It's Ron Tea Gardens Spring Dragon Longevity Tea. Any of you guys heard of this tea? It's got the famous gynostemma herb in it, jiagolung, if you're familiar with that terminology. And it's like a famous adaptogenic herb found in the south of China, actually. And I usually boost this one up with, I have this yin replenisher. So this one's for those who are familiar with Taoist health. This helps replenish your yin, replenish your jing, essentially. This is not that cheap, but it goes a long way because it's a tincture. So, all right, a few more people in the house now. We got about 30 in the house. Sam, hi from Phoenix, awesome. Lee, Indianapolis, awesome. Aaron, great work, enjoying everything here on Luminary. Oh, awesome. Grizzly Adams, Arkansas. Travis, Mississippi. Nice to have you with us, Travis. Travis, you're actually a recent Patreon. Thank you. Thank you for joining the Patreon gang, yeah? Billy, Gerard, Frank, love your work. Brooklyn, love Brooklyn. Brooklyn in the house. Kurt, Northern Illinois, awesome. First name, last name, Jason. Have you ever taken initiation of any kind? We'll get into that. Ryan, Sam, Tiny House. I'm out in Phoenix. Hi from Boston. Just checking. All right, awesome. There's 34 in the house. Everyone, awesome. Good to have you with us, yeah? So what have we got today? And for all of you that don't know, like as I said with Travis, he recently joined the Patreon. A lot of I'm creating a lot of exclusive content for Patreon now, since a lot of more members are joining, and these live streams, the replays will be exclusive to Patreon if you want to go back and have a look at some of the answers and questions and answers, and even if you asked a question, for example. Yeah. Michael, Sydney, awesome. So let's have a look here. Let's go back up to Micah. Micah had a question. But you've asked this question before, Micah. Have you read any Taoist political philosophy? And we spoke about the art of war. Again, but the thing is that with the art of war, you can't really, it's based loosely on Taoist philosophy, but it's not essentially, Sun Tzu was not essentially not essentially a Taoist, but being from that time period, influenced by Confucianism as well. So when you say Taoist political philosophy, what sort of text do you have in mind when you mention that? Because I know you asked that a long time ago. No, was it last live stream? Maybe the 2 live streams before, and it was right at the end. So let me know what text you're referring to, or you're referring to. So, because when we talk about Taoist political philosophy, that's kind of counterintuitive when you think about it, because Taoism essentially is not a political philosophy. It's a critique of Confucianism, or it's a critique of socialization, more to the point. That's why Taoism still always is relevant, because it can critique any form of socialization, no matter whether it's Confucianism or even democracy or communism or what have you, any form of culture and just socialization in general. So let me know what you mean by those texts. Let's move it down. Mick Rolter, Mexico in the house. Awesome. Brad Chappelle, following the way in South Florida, I'm assuming. Also, I love when you reference Alan Watts. Thank you, my friend. Black Tiger. Hey there, Jason. I've been on the spiritual path for the last few years, currently 22 years old, and I'm not sure how to progress from here. I have the understanding that life is a game. I would keep progressing just with your work there, Black Tiger. Keep progressing with your spiritual practice. I don't know if you have a spiritual practice. Keep progressing in your study, and don't think of like an end game. You know what I mean? This is it's a somewhat long and arduous process for most of us. It's not that, everyone has an aptitude to awaken like Ramana Maharshi or someone like this. We all have different aptitudes, right? Some people have an aptitude for playing sport, philosophy, and in this context, some people have an aptitude for awakening. So, and most of us don't fall into that category. So it requires a lot more self-study, a lot more actual study of the traditions, a lot more meditation practice. And as you get older, you'll see it probably begin to, this idea of free and easy wandering of Zhuangzi, you'll begin to have a sense more of that state of consciousness, so to speak. Let's have a look here. Micah, I don't know any text. Actually, it is counterintuitive. Yeah, it is counterintuitive. Some modern scholars, Micah, will speak about Taoism in relation to politics, because you can critique, certain political leanings and so forth and so on. But it's not that there are actual Taoist texts on politics, right? Like if we look at the Warring States period of China, we got Confucius, we've got Mozi, we've got Mengzi, we've got all of these great, we've got all of these philosophers. I don't want to say great. We have all of these philosophers that had their own perspective and have a loose basis on somewhat what the Tao is. Like if you look at Confucianism, for example, Confucius has this idea of inducing the Tao into the world as if the Tao is not inherent to the world, as if we need to, in some sense, cultivate ourselves to become natural rather than that we were already natural from birth. So, and from that, when we are trying to naturalize something that essentially is not natural, and in this sense, a political ideology, then that's when a lot of problems occur and a lot of political philosophy, political analogies of Taoism and that occur. Grizzly Adams, do Taoists have a certain diet, vegan? No, they don't. They follow what is natural. And so, and a lot of Taoists actually follow traditional Chinese medicine, but not like the crazy version of traditional Chinese medicine that a lot of people, well, actually the crazy version of traditional Chinese medicine is actually just a warped version of Chinese medicine that was warped basically by wealthy people in China. So they don't, Taoism essentially has more of a naturalistic diet. So, so less sugars, less carbs. It's a mixture of, probably like in what we would call a stereotypical ideal diet, right? So fats, proteins, so forth and so on. So, which includes, obviously they would eat meat and so forth. And even like if you look at some Buddhist monasteries, I know that this is a bit strange, but like I've been to a couple of Buddhist monasteries, particularly in Thailand, where they might have, they will have meat. Some of these, I mean, it's not very common, obviously, but like there's a monastery north of Chiang Mai, and following the Buddhist path, you have to, in some sense, accept what you are given. So, and the community that this monastery is in is a very poor community, and so the local people can only offer alms, whatever they can offer for alms, right? So sometimes that might include a little bit of chicken here and there, and then the monks, because they follow the Buddhist path sincerely, even though we could say, okay, they probably shouldn't eat meat, they accept it because it's it's a genuine offering from the lay people. And also with Taoism, what you want to think about, Grizzly Adams, is I like to love that name, is that it's Taoism don't have a Christian moralistic, Western moralistic standpoint. So it's not that they have Taoism essentially is amoral. So it's just the way of nature. So it's not creating any man-made thought forms that we ought to follow and so forth and so on. Does that mean that we should go out and butcher all the meat in the world? Of course it doesn't mean that. It means, use some common sense and some discretion, right? So, which is a whole, longer topic. Love it. Keep the questions coming in, people. Love it. Keep it coming. Will Fitzgerald, I'm most interested in the upcoming Tao book. I'm selfishly hoping it covers middle to advanced historical and philo-spiritual topics and insights. It does, Will. It does. I actually just finished chapter 3 yesterday. So, and that chapter 3 kind of took me a little bit of time, maybe about, let's say 3 weeks, I think, something around that. I usually date when I start and finish a chapter because I handwrite the book first. So it does. And I'm trying to go even further, like, because, for example, like if you look at effortless living, I kind of mainly cover the topic of Wu Wei. So I don't get into a lot of the, the historical aspects of Taoism, its relationship to Confucianism, also the sort of the general Taoist metaphysical framework that a lot of people don't understand. So when we get into, a lot of people might hear the terms of Wu Qi or Tai Chi, and they relate these to spiritual practices when they actually have a philosophical basis in general. So we have to remember that Taoism essentially, and still is, a philosophical system, though spiritual practices were built on top, like Tai Chi Chuan, Qigong, the microcosmic orbit, and so forth and so on. Someone asked me actually a few days ago through email, they said, are you going to cover the microcosmic orbit in the new Taoist book? And it's kind of like, well, I don't see why I would, because there's so much good. There's already a lot of great literature out there on that, and I would only be rehashing kind of what a lot of other people have already said. So I wanted to get more into the actual tradition of Taoism and the actual philosophical basis based on Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi. As you all know from my channel, a lot of videos are based on Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi. So Royale for Truth, Al Brewski. Al's an old friend of mine. Everyone, a really old friend, good friend. One of my greatest friends from, don't know when it is, a long time ago, 2004 or 5, something like this. Given your early studies of secret societies and certain agendas and seeing many of those agendas begin to manifest in the current times, do you still feel any magnitude pulled towards your early activities, or has your inner work totally removed you from that illusion, brother? Yeah, I don't really pay any attention to it anymore, Al. I don't know. I don't have a gravitational pull towards it. Though, like for example, I could skim across something and, obviously it's interesting. And we all know that there are certain conspiracies in the world, but there are a lot of like conspiracies that aren't true either. And it's very difficult in this day and age with social media, YouTube specifically, right? Where people can post anything and then people can believe whatever they choose to believe. Now, I'm not saying that no one, like everyone should be able to express themselves freely for sure. But like, you have to be able to like sniff out what is BS and what isn't, right? So there's a lot of conspiratorial BS online, though there are a lot of conspiracy theories that are based on facts and this and that. And we all know that. But a lot of the inner work, you don't, when you engage in a lot of inner work, you don't really have a gravitational pull to a lot of that. First and foremost, because it's hard to know what is the truth in a certain sense, right? Like one of the core parts of, say, for example, yoga philosophy, which actually Guyang and I will cover this Sunday on the podcast, is misperception based on false knowledge, right? So like when you understand that our mind gravitates to interesting things and gravitates towards exciting things in general, then we start to notice that a lot of that in some sense is not true and can lead us down a lot of blind alleys. Now, like I said, doesn't mean everything is untrue that you see online. There's a lot of truth, but there's a lot of misinformation. But it's actually a nature of the mind. To misperceive is actually a nature of the mind. It's what Patanjali would call is like a pattern of our consciousness, just as memory is a pattern of our consciousness, and just as right perception is a pattern of our consciousness, misperception is also a pattern of our consciousness. So when you go deeper and deeper into meditative work, you realize you sort of come into contact more with this, this habit we have to misperceive certain things. So it's not that for example, like you said with secret societies and that, it's not that is all not interesting. I mean, like you can pick up a book by Jim Marrs, for example, right? And it's extremely interesting. But it's more so about like observing yourself and your relationship to those certain things. So, are you, why are you attracted to certain secret societies? And so it's more about your own perspective of that stuff. So, I mean, that's such it's a larger topic actually, because especially in the modern day where so many people are actually attracted to like conspiracies and drama in general, right? So, and not that all conspiracies are about drama, but you have to have the know-how how to discern. You have to have a good bullshit detector, right? So, and you have to sort of find the basis of what some conspiracies are. Like, for example, I don't know a lot about flat Earth. In no way do I think the Earth is flat, but I heard a lot of people who were high up on the flat Earth so-called, spectrum had a Christian basis and had certain, reasons why they believe the earth is flat, and why they promoted those certain things. And we see this a lot, right? Like, so it's really hard to see. But to get back to your point, yes, when you do more and more and more spiritual work, the less you are attracted to kind of the external noise and the external phenomenon. It's just all noise, really, in the end, right? Like, there's no differentiation between like what's happening with conspiracies as opposed to what's happening with the daily news. It's all a spectrum of noise, of mundane noise, actually, and it's always trying to drag your attention and to divert your focus away from actually what's really important. A lot of people, like, for example, can have families, and you would know this, Al, because you have a family now, is that, and their whole attention will be diverted from what's immediate and important in their life, because the earth is flat. So we could go on and on, but thanks for the question, Al. Awesome, man. It's good to see you here. Black Tiger, we're all just playing characters on the stage, so to speak, and I'd like to know what to do with that information. The game seems so rigged against good people. Well, that's true. But also, you don't want to also, there's a lot of good people who are doing good things that don't get any recognition and don't need that recognition as well, right? So we have to kind of remember that the media only focus on, drama. They only focus on what's clickbaity, what's going to gain your attention. And unfortunately, because of the negativity bias of our mind, which kind of leads into what Al was talking about, is that we look at a lot of things that are negative and we focus too much on the negative, when there's actually a lot of positive things happening in the world. Everyone here, and me doing this, and this is, I sense that this is kind of positive, right? Like what I'm doing on the channel and everything like that. So I wouldn't conflate that to assume that all good people are having a tough time. Most good people, I think, are living a very good life. But I know what you're saying, that it can at times seem that it's rigged. And especially like if you look at, so like everyone in here probably has an interest in spirituality. Spiritual people are often, a minority and kind of in the background, and we have our own sort of shanty view of the world, and and a lot of other people don't. So we can be kind of outcasts in any society and in any culture, but we stand firmly on our 2 feet and don't get drawn into the game, so to speak, Black Tiger. So you got to have a distance from the game, and it kind of goes into what Al was talking about. And this is the practice of vairagya in Vedanta, this idea of having a distance between, the noise and yourself. If you can hear the noise now, you can hear the ambulance going past. So having a distance from it, and which is better for your own spiritual cultivation. So it can appear rigged, right? But as you said, we're all playing characters and this and that. But the thing is, it's not. So, like, if you look at it from a Taoist perspective, and you look at it from like the Zhuangzian perspective, you need to play your role well too, right? It doesn't mean that you have to just go, "Oh, I'm done with the game." That's kind of fatalistic perspective of Eastern spirituality, and you kind of haven't become comfortable in your own skin. If we look at a lot of Eastern spiritual paths, one of the foundations of it is not being at odds with your own humanity. So what I feel in your message is that maybe because you said you're only kind of new to the game, and this happens for a lot of us, right? Like we can be at odds with our own humanity in this spiritual process. So in our own spiritual process, I mean. So then, it's hard to grow and mature if we're constantly fighting ourselves, right? You have to accept certain things about yourself, certain idiosyncrasies, certain ways about it. And the best way to deal with that is to become more humble and accept yourself for the way you are, and know that your personality and this and that is a certain way due to certain factors, genetics, also culturally, and so forth. But you build a relationship with a deeper aspect of yourself, and then you can play your role well. That's Strong's idea, is that you understand the zero perspective, and then you can begin to play your so-called role well, because of the Taoist understanding that all roles are essentially played, right? So you're not. This is where variation comes into the Tao Te Ching. So it means that, the idea of go with the flow. One of the core aspects of that, it means that you can move efficaciously through your life and have different roles, but you're not stuck to any of these roles. You can be the father, the mother, the accountant, the priest. You can move through all of these roles in your life and have different jobs, but you have variation. This is the idea in the Tao Te Ching of going with one of the aspects of going with the flow in the Tao Te Ching. You're not stuck, and that means your mind has loosened up. And so, what I read in your comment is that you still have a mind of deliberation, and that's okay early on in the spiritual path. But you have to have a mind of no deliberation. You have to sort of put the spiritual solvent on to unstick, this phenomenon that our mind tends to stick on everything, right? So it's kind of a long-winded explanation, but guys, there's 49 in the chat and only 33 thumbs up. Remember, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Bridget, Minnesota, thank you. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Colin. Hey, Cole, how are you? Hey, hi, Jason. Mike, thank you, brother. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. You're the man. Colin, hi, Jason. What do you think of narrow inclusion of mindfulness and meditation into Western medical science? Actually, there's nothing, negative about it. I would say there's nothing that's not positive about it. Mindfulness, as you know, Cole, is even in its most stripped down basis, will have a positive effect on someone's life, right? Like if someone who's dealing with depression or anxiety or other mental illnesses, and even people who are dying and this and that, sometimes mindfulness can help them remain in the present moment, put their mind in a place where they're not feeling, say for example, if you're dying, you're not feeling physical pain. But a lot of people these days are suffering from mental illnesses. So there's a lot of psychological pain. And so mindfulness can help. As you know from my work, what's actually more beneficial is if you understand the tradition and there was actually teachers who could deliver it, as opposed to people who have probably read a couple of Buddhist books on mindfulness and then gone in and explain mindfulness to certain people, right? Like, because the actual meditation tradition, so if we look at Satipatthana, if we look at mindfulness, which is Satipatthana, the tradition in Buddhism, particularly Theravada Buddhism, then there's a lot of benefit you will gain from understanding the philosophical framework. And so then the mindfulness that you practice will be more enriched. And this is why, as you all know, this is one of the things that I harp on about on this channel, is about understanding the traditional basis of the Eastern traditions. And a lot of people say, yeah, but tradition is not important. And, from a certain perspective, you can say tradition is not important. But what you need to understand is that these practices got to a certain point to where we are now, that they came from certain lineages, that it's important to understand the philosophies and the teachers who taught them, right? Like you could learn Advaita Vedanta purely through a so-called, quote unquote, non-dual teacher these days. But what's more important than that? Going back and reading the Upanishads, reading Gaudapada and Shankara, where these great teachings came from. So, Luther, what does it mean to awaken? That's an interesting question, and what I would say would just be subjective, right? So, like it would be different to other people. But I guess the main premise in Eastern philosophy, actually have a book about actually I do have a book, Enlightenment Now, which you could read on that. But also I have a video on enlightenment from a couple of years ago, which kind of tackles this situation or this question. And basically the idea is to you've awakening essentially means you've awoken to the sensation that you've come back in contact with your real nature as opposed to your personality. So you've not created a distance. You've come back into your pure awareness, which can see that your personality, the energy, that even the body itself is part of something, is part of a world that, in some sense, the ultimate reality is immanent within, but also transcends. And so you sort of come back in contact with that transcendent element of the ultimate reality, which we could call Atman, or the Genren in Taoism, and Buddha nature in Buddhism. And so it's kind of awakening means to really wake up, to come to your senses that the personality is not you fundamentally. It's a temporary phenomenon. It's not the eternal sort of substratum of existence that we would call Tao or Brahman. Ryan Mahan, have you read any of Michael Singer's books? I don't know if I know who Michael Singer is. No, I have. Not that it comes to mind, Ryan. No, sorry. Miss Zen, in the book Be As You Are by Ramana Maharshi, he mentions that Brahman is the heart. Is this a way of saying that everything is Brahman? Or does it also refer to the heart chakra? No, it doesn't refer to the heart chakra, Miss Zen. It refers to what you first said, everything is Brahman. And actually in Be As You Are, David Godman, he kind of, in his commentary, says that Raman is talking about not actually also the physical heart, like you're alluding to with the heart chakra, like kind of like the core of our existence, yeah, that the wellspring of our existence. And so, and a lot of, obviously in Hindu philosophy, kind of this area is like, that sensation of the heart chakra and that sensation of our sort of original place. Or our connection to Brahman. Obviously, some yogis and that would disagree because they would say the third eye, not the third eye, the crown chakra is where we unite with Brahman. But Ramana takes it another step and says you have to live from kind of the heart to understand the heart of existence. So, yeah, so what he's saying is basically that everything is Brahman, not referring to the heart chakra. And that's why the heart chakra is not kind of mentioned in the text, and also why he tries to make a discernment between not the like, because in the West especially we have romantic ideas of the physical heart as opposed to the sort of the energy of this area, right? Which again you could say the heart chakra. But Brad Chappelle, I feel lucky to find the Tao in my life. Do you think it will ever grow in the States? I know where to find content, but most of my friends, family are not familiar. It's true, Brad. But, you probably know this, but most of my audience are from the States. Now, there are a lot of people in America who are interested in Taoism. It's just a very, very small few, just like maybe just the people in this chat. So it's a difficult thing because the problem in America is associations. People will associate Taoism with China, and then it might have a negative review just based on that basis. And also, one of the problems in America that I see is America's tendency to be over political. I mean, and I'm not saying that anyone in the chat here does this. I mean, you're obviously here for a reason, but there's kind of a general kind of ethos in the States where a lot of people will turn everything into a political issue, and so everything is about politics. Everything is about wielding someone's opinion, having a subjective viewpoint. And the basis is individualism, right? So Taoism is a holistic philosophy. See, this is a difference. It's a holistic philosophy, and it's about the dissolution of the individual to unite with something much greater than yourself. And from that place, then you can empathize and be compassionate towards other people. But Yeah, the problem in America is it's individualistic basis. So we create tribes, we create groups and subgroups and so forth and so on, and then everything gets related to politics. And one of the headaches I have of sort of kind of monitoring my channel is I get a lot of comments on the Taoist content from Americans who relate Taoism to some sort of left or right philosophy, libertarianism, and blah, blah, blah. So it always has to be categorized, see, from a modern political lens. And this is incorrect. You have to see the traditions on their own. And people get so mad at me, especially in America, when I say this. You have to see the traditions on their own. Like I made a video about, I can't remember what it was about, but I told them about all the teachers I've learned from and this and that, and how I essentially, just shut up and just listen, because what do I know? You know what I mean? You got to go in there. You got to learn Eastern philosophy, especially kind of with no subjective filters. I don't know that's difficult, because we have certain things about ourselves that, and certain really hardwired conditioning that can conflict with the reality as it truly is. But if you can just accept it for what it is, then you'll learn the most from it. And it seems as though that you've come to Taoism with a innocent state of mind, Brad, and you're willing to learn. So I think it can grow in America. I don't know how it will grow in America. Now, I'm saying that because when I look at, say, for example, if I look at Buddhism, right? Now, there are a lot of monasteries and places in the States, Buddhist monasteries, that are really great. But then there are some that have these political leanings, and they leak out in the satsangs, and they leak out in the dialogues with the teachers. And I also, unfortunately, see Buddhist magazines in America that have a lot of influence, which have turned Buddhism basically into this kind of socio-political philosophy that has to have a stance on this and that and this, and takes away from the actual spiritual teachings of the Buddha, and actually undermines the teachings of the Buddha. So, but this is what happens when a philosophy can go to other places. It can be appropriated, it can be rinsed out, it can go through the ringer, and then it can end up like, as I mentioned with Buddhism in America. But fortunately, if we look at Hinduism in America, Vedanta, yoga, well, let's put yoga to the side. Vedanta has remained as it is in India. Mainly because Vedanta is so frightening for a lot of people. They don't want to practice it, or don't want to really come to the recognition that we are all Brahman, and that we have to kind of get rid of the individual. It's a very direct path, Advaita Vedanta. So it can be very frightening. And so if you ever see any sort of satsangs in India, like if you ever watch a satsang with Swami Sarvapriyananda, for example, there'll only be a few people in attendance, and usually it's a couple of oddball Americans and then mainly Indians. So yes, it's going to be very difficult for Taoism to grow in America as it is. I hope it does, and it still can, but we can't mix this with politics. It just cannot, because Taoism is anti-political. It's an amoral tradition. Daniel Stewart, New York, love it, Dan. Good to have you with us. Charles, good evening. Charles, the Acadian Forest. Wow, I love it. Will, Dal Vegetarian here. That's excellent, Will. Thank you. Jap van Zevenberg. Question here. I don't see the question, Jap. What do we got here? Starfruit Juice Box. How long did it take you to write the first draft of Effortless Living? What inspired you to begin writing books? I don't know. Like, I don't know what the inspiration was. There's a quote by Nanda Kumaraswamy, and I can't remember it. And it really encapsulates my sort of way of my feeling about writing and for myself writing. It's something about, and I'll butcher the actual what he actually said, but it's something about like digesting the knowledge and kind of pouring it onto the pages. Kind of it's therapeutic in itself, but it can also help others. Now, I'm not saying that it's totally like that for me, but why I began was just because I learned a lot of deep knowledge, and I wanted to share it with others, right? And so, but also in the process of writing, it helps me also to solidify and reinforce the knowledge. Even with the podcast that a lot of you like, organizing the podcast and actually explaining the knowledge, it also reinforces the knowledge for myself and for myself as well. Like it's a strange process, right? Like a lot of you benefit from it, but I also benefit from it myself. So, and Guyang as well, obviously. So how long did it take to write the first draft of Effortless Living? It's interesting because I started writing Effortless Living, if you can believe this, way back in 2013 in a very hot apartment in Seoul, South Korea. And so I was basically the summer in South Korea, I spent writing, and I actually wrote the first draft in less than 3 months. And I thought that the book was ready. And so I went to my publisher, Inner Traditions, and not my publisher, but the publisher who has published most of my books. And one of the acquisition editor there, who I've become really good friends with, John Graham, shout out to John, really awesome individual. He looked at it and he said, you know what, you can do more. And I'm glad he pushed me, because the few years after that, I kind of, editing books can be the worst part of writing books, obviously. And editions and that is all right, but editing books themselves can be a drag. It's kind of like editing videos. Editing's, too much detail, too much technicalities, but it's a necessary evil. So the next few years after I moved from South Korea, and I moved to Chiang Mai in 2014, and I touched it up a little bit. And then in end of 2014 and 2015, Guyang and I moved back to India. And so I was living in Tiruvannamalai in the south. And that's where I really kind of dived into the re-editing and restructured it. And then in 2016, I had kind of finished it and polished it and then gave it back. And so you could say a couple of years, but the meat, the basis of the book was basically written in less than 3 months. So I'm taking a bit longer with this book because I noticed that sometimes my previous books, I kind of anxiously rushed through the process, and then it was pointless to actually rush through the process, because then on the other end, I had to edit for a long time, had to go back and forth with my acquisition editor, and it's pointless to rush through it. You might as well just take your time and really make it the best that you can. So, Noah, man, saying hello on my way out the door. Hope you're still on when I get you. I'll still be here. Awesome. Enjoy the burrito. Sue, any suggestions for how to deal with loneliness that can accompany awakening when others in one's circle cannot relate? That's a very difficult question, Sue, and it can be a very personal question for each and every one of us. So it's not going to be, what can I say? It's not going to be the same for each and every person, right? So I'm sure everyone in here has dealt with some sort of loneliness issues, for sure. And even myself, right? Like doing this, and I've spoken about this on the live stream a lot. When I started writing even way back to when I was writing articles back when I was in my 20s, um, a lot of people fell away in my life, right? Even family, really good friends. But I persevered with what I did, and it's interesting that loneliness is a funny thing. When you get sometimes if you get more intimate with loneliness, and you realize that in some sense it's more of our persona that needs the nourishment of other people and needs to converse, then that kind of loosens the grip or the attachment somewhat to friends and family. It doesn't mean that you don't need that sort of emotional support or relational support, but it means you're not possessed by those attachments anymore, and you're not dependent. Your life doesn't depend on that. So dealing with loneliness and accompanying awakening when others in one's circle cannot relate, you've just got to be firm in your conviction on your path, Sue. Yeah. I see a lot of people these days who come across, especially Eastern spirituality. And Eastern spirituality can be very demanding because in some sense it demands you to really come to your senses and wake up to yourself, right? It doesn't allow you to fall into any sort of hypnosis or delusion. But I see, unfortunately, a lot of people that I know online through the channel especially, they fall back into familiar habits and familiar groups because of the loneliness, because they feel like they're out of step with their friends or their family. And I can only say, like I said, it's pretty subjective. But from my perspective, I could never turn my back on the knowledge and the teachings. And I'm glad I never did, because I wouldn't be speaking to you here today, and I wouldn't have created all the books that I've created and created this YouTube channel and so forth, right? So you have to be firm in your spiritual practice and come and really not be vexed by your relationship to a lot of people and their perspective of you. You have to be firm in your ground. It doesn't mean you have to, try and promote this knowledge on your friends, to influence them. But you need to be comfortable in the way you are too, comfortable with the knowledge you've acquired and your understanding of the world, and kind of be a little bit flexible. Yeah. So like you can move sort of efficaciously through from like, you go and see your friends and they might talk about a certain thing. And it's obviously important not to engage in gossip and stuff like that, but you can obviously converse with them still as a friend, right? And without maybe spiritual topics coming up. But then when you're not with them, you can shanti, it's back to business. I mean, you have to have a little bit of this Zhuangzian mentality of genuine pretending, so to speak, in air quotes, right? Like you're not really pretending, but you understand that you're playing a role. And only it's funny because it's that role or that persona that we've embodied that kind of is what is lonely, right? So the more you abide as the self, as the Atman or as the Genren in Taoism, the more that you won't be vexed by this question. You'll take this question off the fire and it's all good. Yeah. So, but as I said, loneliness can be a very personal thing, and not knowing you personally, it's very difficult to assess that. If we were face to face, obviously, yeah, because it could be new. You could provide me with more nuance on that. Al, thank you, brother. Yes, the more I get in touch with my divinity, the more the layers of illusion strip away. That's for sure, brother. All is the Tao. Back to work for me. We'll catch the rest on replay. Thanks, brother. You're the man, Al. Awesome, brother. Starfruit Juice Box, Sue Mosley. I'm curious too. When you're alone on a journey, it can be hard to get perspective. It's true. It's true. And that's why there were always teacher-student relationships within the Eastern philosophical traditions. And I guess it's kind of what we're doing here. We have a certain relationship, right? Like you guys enjoy my channel and we're discussing this. So it's The funny thing is that none of you are here, right? Like, I don't know how you feel. None of you are here, but I don't feel alone, right? Like, I feel like we are having a good conversation. Unfortunately, it's one way, but we are sharing a space together, and I don't have a sense of loneliness. And I'll let you, for Sue, and also for Starfruit, as I said with my own experience, right? Like with a lot of distance with my family and my older friends. I have, new friends now, but I don't see them much because I know them from, overseas. So I'm talking primarily about my previous life in Australia here. So there's a lot of distance. And the thing is that, especially I would say the last 3 years, since Guy Young and I have been back in Australia, I've spent most of my time alone. Now, some people say that must be very unfortunate because Guy Young goes out and does her thing during the day, right? She comes home at night. And most of the day I'm sitting here either working on videos or creating something, obviously my own spiritual practice. And I don't see anybody apart from her. And so I think about it now and I don't really think anything of it. But I think that's due to maybe my prior spiritual training. If you had told me when I was in my 20s that you're going to spend 3 years basically alone, I'd be like, no way. But I don't know, I'm just more comfortable being alone. I'm not saying I'm comfortable I'm more comfortable than being alone than with people. I'm just saying I'm comfortable with being alone. I'm also comfortable with being with people. And that's the stage you need to actually get to sort of that variation, like in the Tao Te Ching. You can move with all worlds. And I know at the moment, for example, that because of the pandemic and because of my situation here in Australia and we can't get back to Asia, is that, I just got to spend time on my own here. So I don't really analyze it or overthink it. I just get on with it and I do it. And I know that the time will come when I'll go back to Asia and I know a lot more people and I'll probably have tours and meet a lot of you guys. And so you got to have variation. You got to be able to move, right? With what life presents itself. You need immense trust in your life. Yeah. You need immense trust that even if you're lonely within the circle of people that you're familiar with, you still have to trust the process. And you also have to, trust. I remember William Walker Atkinson said this really great quote in, I think, The Yoga Philosophy, his book called The Yoga Philosophy. And he said that we ought not to judge even like people close to us in a circle, because everyone is where they need to be at this moment in their own spiritual evolution. So even the people who are engaged in the most mundane things, you have to accept that that's where they're at. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like it's a game of one's better or the other, right? So. Will, thanks. I agree that some nuts and bolts of Taoism are covered ad infinitum, and I'm always looking for better and better discussions to consider. You and the missus are helping me remember where home is. Thank you, Will. Thank you. So happy that you enjoy, my friend. And Guyang, she always says, she always tells me to say hello to you guys. She's not here at the minute. I told all of you on not a recent one of the first, I think the 30,000 subscriber live stream. I said, if we get the 50,000 subs, Guyang and I will do a live stream together. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed. Yeah. The sooner we get to the 50,000 mark, Guyang and I will do a live stream together. And we can just have a little bit of a party together and I'd like for her to engage on the live stream. It'd be good. 62 in the room, people. Remember, only 60 thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up. Mike, you're a legend. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. When are you taking us to northern Thailand? Oh man, 2022, huh? Let's do it. Let's do it. Thailand are getting, the people are getting restless in Thailand, Mike. I can tell you. I have a lot of friends in Thailand, and I don't know if any of you know, but Thailand depends heavily on tourism. And so uh, lockdowns and this and that are kind of, the people of Thailand are just are over it. And I guess most places in the world are probably over it, right? So, um, and a lot of people in Thailand have just kind of like Singapore's mentality, or like Texas and Florida or somewhere like this, where they kind of are trying to accept that they just have to live with it. Otherwise, there's a lot of other social problems that will happen. So, I mean, which already have happened, right? Like, I don't know. Go and have a look at some of the footage of Thailand businesses, and you'll see that, I mean, it's been decimated because of tourism. So a lot of people have just returned back to the countryside in Thailand, back to their families and stuff like this. And so I would look, I'm going to be optimistic, Mike, and I'm going to say 2022, and I want to say actually in the first half of 2022. And to let you all know, like, my lease here at this place, I extended it because, I don't know what the hell's happening with the Australian government here, but I extended my lease here, and so I'm here till March. But I have a place lined up in Thailand to go. So the idea is I get to Thailand, and I have the tour for Thailand raring to go for all of you, first half of 2022, and hopefully India and Nepal tour in the same year as well. So I'm going to err on the positive side, on the optimistic side. I know a lot of people are pretty pessimistic about the situation at the moment, but I'm going to err on the side of optimism, and I don't engage in a lot of the noise. So, I think that we are really heading to. I think that we're going to get out of this, and I think that all of us are going to be enjoying somewhere like Thailand or India or Nepal or even Sri Lanka much sooner. Yeah, sooner rather than later. So let's go back up and have a look at some of the questions. Wow, I love all the questions. Thank you, everyone. Awesome. Charles, don't forget the Mahavakyas. That's right. That's right, Charles. The four Mahavakyas. Did I tell you that I was going to make some content on the Mahavakyas? Maybe I didn't. Billy, Jared, Frank, Billy, thank you, sir. Love it. I appreciate it, Billy. You're the best. Charles, I did tell you that I was going to make the content on Mahavakyas. Maybe I told you last time. I haven't done it. Sorry, my friend. I've been engrossed in my new book, and also creating some YouTube content on the side. So once I get a handle on this new book, I'll create probably more new YouTube content, and obviously the Mahavakyas will be one of those. Mick Ralta, exactly. Many see Chinese culture as something to be rejected for some inexplicable but social-based reason. Yeah, there's a few reasons, and we discussed it on the last live stream, Mick. It's Mike. I don't know quite how to say your name, but I think the problem is obviously communism, right? Like, so people, and Marxism. So people relate. People who don't know the history of China and the nuances of the culture will just relate anything to the Cultural Revolution and communism and Marxism, even though what they don't understand is that communism, Marxism want to actually get rid of, and have attempted to get rid of, Taoism in China, and also Buddhism, and are at the moment trying to get rid of Islam in Xinjiang. So people see that and they relate everything to it if they don't have a lot of information. So yeah, what can I say about that? A lot of people are quick to judge without any sort of foresight. Ryan Mahan, Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. No, I haven't read Untethered Soul. Will, categorizing the infinite is an interesting mental mind fuck. That's right, Will. That's right. I actually got a video. You probably watched that podcast actually about trying to categorize the infinite. I forget the name of the podcast. It was from, dare I say it, February or March, something along those lines. Measuring infinity is something along these lines. 100, 1001. I don't know how to say your name. Is it? But anyway, Jason, it's been an amazing journey so far, learning and growing from your videos over these past few years. It has filled my world with light and always in ways that I could have never imagined. Please never stop. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. That means the world to me to hear those messages. And I get a lot more of those messages these days. And it chokes me up sometimes. That's why I love and appreciate all of you. Yeah, I really do. It means a lot. I know a lot of people say to me, your channel should be massive, and I would have no problem with that, right? But what I sort of think about that when people say that to me is that always like the most sincere and genuine content usually doesn't find a massive platform, right? But it finds the right people. And so that's what I try to reinforce in my mind, that my channel is finding, and my books are finding the right people. And in an age of inauthenticity, I think that genuineness like that is hard to come by. So I really appreciate all of you. AD, hi Jason and everyone. AD, thank you for being with us. Brad, thank you for the great answer, and I agree. I feel like I can help with the word by just following the natural way. Yeah, of course, 100%, 100%. Brad, you don't have to go out and move mountains. Yeah, you don't have to go out and influence people. You don't have to go door knocking like a Jehovah's Witness and spread the word. Nature wants you to be as nature intended, to live the life as you are, as opposed to as socialization says you ought to be. Yeah, you ought to be like this way. You ought to have an opinion. You ought to do this. You ought to tell that guy to be this. But you're comfortable in your own skin. Yeah, you're comfortable in your own being, and you're like, I don't need. I have no insecurities. So I don't need to influence other people with my own opinion. I'm at peace. Shanti. Michelle Lavelle. Greetings from Vermont, USA. Michelle, thank you for being with us. Actually, Inner Traditions, who most of my books are published by, located in Vermont. Fun fact. All right. Daniel Stewart, when Gautama the Buddha said that I am awake, did he mean that when he went within, he discovered his true nature is the voidness of the universe? Yes, in part, but it was after an arduous 6 years of asceticism, yeah, and sincere spiritual practice. And when he crossed the river of Nirranjana, so Nirranjana is, if we look at it from a historical context, if people believe in the historical Buddha, when he crossed the river of Nirranjana, it's a little river right beside what we would call now Bodh Gaya, then he accepted a milky. He was completely done. Like, he had been 6 years, exhausted himself, fasted his body, done everything he did to realize the nature of his true existence. Then he accepted a milky soup from a young girl herding cattle, and then he sat under the infamous Bodhi tree, right? And then that's when he had the realization that night. or attain samadhi or nirvana, or however you want to term it. But it was the recognition that it was still the person, the identity, trying to take something, still trying to attain something. Someone was still searching to attain a certain state. And it's hard for us to get out of that, because no matter what culture we come from, we have kind of this linear, can have a little bit of a tendency to have a linear perspective of the world. The West is obviously more handicapped by this mentality. I mean, in the East, there is a bit more of a cyclical thought structure cognitively, but in general, most of people in the world still have this kind of idea of attaining something, right, or succeeding at something. And the problem was, in Gautama's time, was all of the sadhus and that of that time still had that mentality. So it's a very social mentality, right, of achieving and this and that. But when we look at meditation, and we look at spiritual practice in general, it's kind of outside the scope of linear thought. It's more of a non-linear system, more of a natural system of practice to get your mind back into the way of nature, right? Nature doesn't follow any sort of linear progression. It's a product of our mind, right? And we look at ourselves in a linear way. We think, oh, we live from birth to death, but we don't think in cycles. Like, you know, our life will have a time frame, but then there's another life, and so forth and so on. So there's all different perspectives, right, on that. But when he sat under the Bodhi tree, he discovering his true nature is understanding the shunyata, right? Shunyata. So that, but the thing is, like, emptiness is form and form is emptiness, right? So he understood that intrinsic to nature, there's not a particular, we could say, characteristic, right? And this is similar to also Taoism. And this is why a lot of scholars will say that, and I mentioned this in my new book a little bit, talk about Taoism in a meontological sense. Meontology is basically the school of thought of nothingness, right? Or the basis of nothingness. And so that fundamentally under the substratum of existence is nothingness. So the person Siddhartha Gautama was just a temporary phenomenon, or a kind of a wave on this kind of infinite ocean of nothingness, shunyata, if you will. So it was a recognition. Buddha had the recognition and a firm realization in that place. And then he could see the world as it truly is. Now, as I mentioned earlier with Ramana Maharshi, is that, as with other things, some people have an aptitude for certain things and some people don't. And some people need more work. So for Ramana, at 16, he had this kind of realization, right? He had this enlightenment. But for Buddha, it took 6 years. Maybe for some people it takes, the traditional schools in India, a lot of you may not know this, but if you went to a traditional school in India, and there's still schools like this until today, but there was more back in the day, when you wanted to learn, the Vedas, Vedanta, particular paths of yoga, you had to go into a ashram for 12 years, and you had to sit under a master for 12 years, where every single day for 12 years, you would wake up at a certain time, meditate, practice hatha yoga, have breakfast, morning satsang with the master, lunch, a little bit of rest in the afternoon, back to meditation later in the afternoon, and then a nightly satsang. And this is 12 years. Yeah. So yeah, to try and crack the person, trying to get the person out of the person, so to speak, or trying to gain control, some sense, of your pure awareness. Because all we are fundamentally are, in a sense, is pure awareness. And the problem with our existence as humans is our pure awareness gets commingled and entangled with socialization. And so then we create the persona, and then we create, all of the problems and conflict that we have in the world. And so the Buddha What he did was he came back to the pure awareness and understood that, you know, the ego, the sense of self itself is an illusion. It's a temporary phenomenon on the great on the great ocean of existence. Mike or Mick, writing also helps you comprehend deeper the knowledge one possesses, organizing your inner notions and noise. That's true. That's exactly kind of what I was trying to speak about, Mike, was what you said is kind of like a similar to kind of what Ananda Kumaraswamy was talking about. And those I've mentioned in the last live stream. If you don't know who Ananda Kumaraswamy is, or was, I should say, go out and search his name and read maybe the Dance of Shiva. I mean, not everyone's going to resonate with the Dance of Shiva, but there's some very, put it this way, a scholar once said to me, Ananda Kumaraswamy was the smartest man of the 20th century that no one knew. So, Kan Ming Nguyen, nice to see you. I'm assuming maybe you're from Vietnam. I mean, I'm not sure. Do you think that fundamentalist Christians see Taoism more threatening than atheism because of the Wu Wei concept? Yeah, I think so. A lot of you don't know this because you may not see the comments, but I get a lot of fundamentalist Christians on the channel. Jesus is the only way. When will you guys wake up? When will you all wake up? So, I mean, and you know the irony here, and this is really important, that a lot of people, you know, especially in India, they say, like, because, you know, like of all of the attempts of conversion on Hindus from Christians, and especially Christians, is that you don't see Hindus or Buddhists or Taoists going onto Christian content, this and that, saying, don't you know it's Wu Wei? Like, don't you know to chill and don't worry? And, you know, you imagine. I mean, obviously a Buddhist, a Hindu, or a Taoist wouldn't do that because that's ridiculous, because that's a path of force, and it's not natural to do that. But Christians often do that, and I find it funny. Like, but you have a point, yes, and that's why they do find Taoism more threatening than atheism, yeah, because atheism is kind of like, doesn't really have. I mean, let's be frank. Atheism has a mythology. It's a belief that there is no God, right? So that's a mythology in and of itself, and so it still has a mythology, but it's just more direct about that there is, you know, you live, you die. Say once you and I, all of us died, we just blank, like it never happened. And you know, a lot to be said about that. Guys, 57 in the room, only 70 thumbs up. I'm sure that you can all, hope you can all give us a thumbs up. Ori Charm, thank you. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you, my friend. I remember you from last time. Awesome. Keep the questions coming, people. I love all this. This is awesome. What do we got? Will, from one thought comes two complementary opposite, and from two comes three synthesis. Love to hear and chew on expressions of the Tao. Thank you, my friend. Love it. Mick, the art of effortless living gives me comfort and structure when I am in confusion. Thank you. That's awesome to hear, my friend. I get a lot of that compliments about that video documentary from people. So that really means a lot. Travis, is there a contradiction between Buddhist teachings upholding the mind as the way to reach enlightenment, and the yogic teachings that one must leave the mind behind to realize ultimate reality? This is a good question, Travis, and it's all about the language, and also the problems in language with translations into English. Yeah. How can I explain this? See, like, if we look at the mind in the sense of both Hindu and Buddhist, and even Taoism, the mind essentially in its nature is empty, spontaneous, and free. So the problem here is that, so that's the nature of the mind, right, in the Eastern traditions. But then what happens is that we have the accumulation of mental activity, the subconscious, then the development of the ego, and so forth. And so these are the contents of the mind. Now, the problems occur in English, especially when you hear Advaita Vedanta teachers, especially, that they will say, oh, you have to overcome your mind and this and that. But what they really mean is the contents of the mind. No one can actually overcome their mind, because the mind essentially, its nature is empty, spontaneous, and free. But the mind has a tendency to want to fix itself. It wants to solidify itself. Its nature, as the second noble truth describes in Buddhism, is seeking. It craves. It constantly seeks, right? So it's seeking to solidify itself. This is the problem. And so then when it accumulates all this knowledge, and we have this accumulated sense of self, right, then that's when all the problems occur. So that's when we have this sense of Jason, sense of so forth, what have you, all of our personalities that rub up against other personalities and cause conflict. And so there actually is no contradiction fundamentally. It can be a problem linguistically, Travis, through translation. Yeah. So Buddhism saying you reach enlightenment through the mind, but obviously the mind is empty, spontaneous, and free. So obviously you have to reach enlightenment through the mind. But you have to discard the contents of your mind, or at least down-regulate the contents of your mind, to have more of an experience of spaciousness, of the shunyata, the Buddha nature at your core. Likewise, in the yogic teachings, right, or the Vedic teachings, you have the same, where one must essentially kind of, there's a term in Korea, wipe the Tao. You must essentially sort of clean your mind to experience this ultimate reality. So the yoga teachers are saying leave the mind behind, and Vedanta is saying leave the mind behind. It's meaning getting rid of the contents, leave that behind. But your experience, if you're still a human, you're still experiencing the world essentially through the mind, or we could say consciousness, but it's empty, spontaneous, and free, and it's not caught here, and it doesn't accumulate a lot of information. Yeah. Paula Soto Mayo. Thank you, Paula, for the super chat. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Best group of people in the world for sure. Daniel, I remember Alan Watts said in a video that we are the universe experiencing itself in human form. What did he mean by that? Alan said an interesting thing where he said, like, the earth peoples, right? So like, just like an apple grows on a tree, the earth peoples. So I have a lot of content on this, Daniel. What he means, what Alan meant by that is kind of like that's kind of an essential teaching in Eastern philosophy, that you aren't doing the universe. The universe is actually doing you. You're a part of the universe, and you are doing what the universe does as a human. Yeah. You don't essentially have control of, you have control of certain things in your life, right? From a subjective viewpoint, we think that, like, I can touch this microphone now, right? But like, the overarching control or mechanism of the world is Brahman or Tao, or what have you. And so you are just a small fragment of that, a part of that doing itself. Yeah. Like Alan had a really clever phrase: do you do it, or does it do you? And a whole lecture series was based on that one small phrase. But it's an interesting perspective, right? Because it's an Eastern perspective. Do you do it, or does it do you? So you are not doing it, it's doing you. That's the fundamental understanding. We are an aperture for the universe to express itself. Even though we think we are this person, we have this job, and we like this certain type of food, and this is all well and good, but it's the universe doing you. You are not doing the universe. And in Shaivism, they explain this really well, where they use Shiva as the example of there's only really the will of Shiva. And so even though you think you have this personal will and these personal likes and dislikes, it's all Shiva's will. And so the idea here is that what acts as a blockage to this is the ego or the personality. So the more you can downregulate that, the more you allow Shiva to do you, or to Shiva to be as you, right? Like, so not that it can never not be you, but it can function through you without any sort of blockage. Shraddha Nietzsche just joining. Welcome, Shraddha. Thank you. Will, I would rather be alone with the Tao. American society has me wanting to retreat to the center and watch the myriad make their own return. Well said, Will. I think a lot of people in America actually would sympathize with you at the minute. Desinganach Itiro, what do you think of Wim Hof? I got this question last live stream. Actually, maybe the live stream before that too. I don't know enough about Wim Hof. I just don't know enough about him. I know he has breathing exercises based on Tumo breathing in Tibet, but I just don't know enough about him. To be honest, guys, I don't watch a lot of YouTube content. Yeah, and I don't really watch. If I watch YouTube content, this may sound strange to you, that I don't watch a lot of spiritual YouTube content, because it's what I do. I usually read about this stuff. I don't watch a lot of content. If I do watch some content, I might watch some authentic teachers, like someone like Swami Sarvapriyananda and people like that. But I just don't. I have a lot of time to watch a lot of content because I'm creating YouTube content and also writing books. So. But I've heard Wim Hof's method's really beneficial, so I can't say much more. Chris Rubbles, hey. John, welcome, brother. Greetings, high desert. Back in the high desert, John. You're off the road. Shraddha, I'm not very familiar with this. Where is the live stream questions? You can just put you can put your question in the chat box, Shraddha. It's that easy. You don't have to sort of, we're kind of live here. We're just running with it and just running and gunning. Chris, Thailand. Yes, you love Thailand, Chris. Daniel, Raymond, Dan, good to see you. You're one in a million, brother. Thank you. Awesome. It always means a lot when I see a lot of my friends that have been around on the channel for a long time. Fernando, can really fully clear the mind or stop sounds of the mind? I've spoke about this a lot. Yes. Well, it's yes and no, right? Like, because the content of the mind and thoughts themselves arise as they are, right? But the Eastern perspective is that thoughts don't have sort of this continuity of this train of thought, this continuity, yeah? So, but we train ourselves to follow the mind, to follow the thoughts, right? So a mind that has come back into its original nature, so it's come back to its original awareness and understands the mind is empty, spontaneous, and free. Thoughts in that still come like clouds in the sky, right? But you see the difference is, as a pure awareness, you just see the sky. This is just passing phenomenon, and you don't wander with the mind. That's the difference. So the one who's heavily trained their awareness, they can see just the clouds just moving, just the thoughts, and they don't wander with them. So it's not that for example, the contents of the mind or the functioning of the mind stops, right? It's not like the Buddha's mind completely ceased. I mean, he continued to teach and have dialogue, right? So there's certain nuances and aspects of functioning of the mind that you need. Same with Ramana Maharshi, all of these great sages. So you have a good point. It's not that they stop, but it's that your attachment to the mental noise and the function of the mind has actually, you've kind of have a distance from that. Your awareness is not entangled with this noise. Yeah. And there's nothing more dangerous than this noise. Even though you see the noise on the outside world, what is that noise the product of? So. Paula, hello. I'm an ex-Hare Krishna devotee and plan to retire in India. Where do you think is the best place to do that? I'm from Portugal, so I was thinking Hindu. Paula, it depends on what you are after. Yeah. So you're an ex-Hare Krishna devotee. So obviously, if you're a Hare Krishna devotee, then Vrindavan would have been the best place. I'm not saying you can't go there to Vrindavan if you are an ex-devotee. But, some of my personal favorites are Tiruvannamalai in South India. If you know this one, it's in Tamil Nadu. It was the home of Ramana Maharshi, and it's the home of Arunachala, the what Shiva devotees believe is like the manifestation of Shiva, like an energy center. The place is one of the best places I've ever lived in my life, Tiruvannamalai. Hence why I continue to go back there. And it's really good for spiritual practice, for taking you will not think about anything in Tiruvannamalai. Trust me. You'll be focused on your spiritual practice. There'll be no noise at all. And the people of South India are amazing, beautiful people. Another place, if you're serious about practice, I would recommend is Bodh Gaya. I know that you're not Buddhist. Maybe you're not Buddhist, but if you're serious about meditation or spiritual practice, Bodh Gaya, there's just an energy in the place that one can't deny. Yeah, one just can't deny it. So, highly recommend there. Look, Dharamsala in the north, Rishikesh. I mean, Varanasi you could go to. Varanasi gets a bit hectic though, so it might not be good for what you may want. There's just so many good places. I mean, India is just littered with it. I mean, I can only mention the ones that I'm really familiar with, but I would say avoid Goa. Avoid Goa and avoid these places. Look, Goa is its own thing, and it's beautiful. But if you're really interested in like deep spiritual practice, like for example, I have good friends, right, that I know from Tiruvannamalai, who will live in Tiruvannamalai for a certain amount of time. They'll go to Goa to spend a few months to something different, but they have to come back because it can be a bit exhausting. Chris, have you seen the show Lost? No, I haven't, my friend. Should I watch it? Billy, thank you for your work. Billy, thank you, my friend. And thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Jericho J23. Hey, good to be here. Jericho from Canada. Love it. Where in Canada, my friend? Let me know. How did how China ended adopting pseudo-capitalism, socialism, if in their roots they are Taoist. Mao Zedong. Cultural Revolution. You need to study about the Cultural Revolution, understand Mao Zedong, understand his attraction to Marxism and so forth and so on. And look, to be honest, and I've spoke about this on the live stream a lot before, because I have a lot of Chinese friends, is that on the ground, there's still a lot of Chinese people still follow Buddhism and follow Taoism, but it's hard to follow it openly. For example, temples and that have become really pretty much a tourist attraction in a lot of places in China. Even though like some Taoist monasteries and temples up in the Udang and in the south are still functioning and still have the energy. It's just, the general ethos had became, like you said, pseudo-capitalistic socialism. So, but you have to really look at Mao Zedong, and you have to look at, like, for example, the generations have changed, especially through the indoctrination of sort of militarized education. And I explained this story on the last live stream, where my friend in Chongqing, his grandma is a Taoist. He and his wife follow Taoism, but their son is full Marxist because of the education system. And he thinks that Taoism is just something that older people learn, and they're kind of foolish. He kind of laughs at his grandma, right? So, the indoctrination starts early in some of those countries. Not that it doesn't start like that in the West. It does in the West as well, but it goes a bit full hectic. Paula, I feel like you're an Alan Watts successor of some sorts. Thank you, Paula. What could I do to contribute to your projects? Paula, I have a Patreon. I will put the link in the description or I have a PayPal, and you'll see the PayPal link in the description as well. In the description of this live stream, you'll see the, but anyway, I put the Patreon link for you. And that's actually, if you want to become a member of Patreon and contribute, then you can become a member. And I have exclusive content on there, and I really appreciate your kind words. Yeah, Alan's his own man. Yeah, really, Alan's his own man, and I learned a lot from Alan, actually. And I'm so glad everyone else here as well. Ming, awesome. Thank you for the super chat, Ming. I will call you Ming. Awesome. You guys, so cool. All right. So what do we got here? Luther, why are there many authentic why are many people inauthentic? Sorry, Luther. Well, if we look at it from the Taoist approach, it comes basically back to socialization itself. So, and this is what Lao Tzu was warning us about 2,500 years ago, is that when you have systems of thought, external systems of thought, that are trying to cultivate people to accord with certain systems, then that creates inauthenticity. It's just part and parcel of the process. And just like Confucianism, what a lot of social societies and cultures and religions and so forth do is they will have a system of thought, and they will try to explain that this is the natural system. And so they try to naturalize what is not natural. It's essentially a man-made system, right? So Confucianism was a man-made philosophy from the mind of Confucius. And so Confucius explained that this system is how people become naturalized. And Lao Tzu's like, bro, no, come on. Seriously, we're born natural. Look at a beautiful baby laughing, giggling, enjoying the world. And then what happens? We step in with our educational models, our cultural models, our social models, and then we begin this socialization process from a very young age. Now, it's not to say that we should not learn certain things. Of course, we should. I mean, it's very helpful to know language and to know mathematics and so forth and so on. But it gets much more nuanced and complicated when you talk about differing cultures and societies and religions. And so this leads to inauthenticity, right? And so you only have to look at, like, if you look at pop culture, modern pop culture especially, and people will say, you often hear young people, right, say, oh, I'm expressing my own authenticity. And but then you go, let's pause for a second there with that statement. What do you mean by this is your authenticity? Because you're basing it off of what you've already seen from a pop culture that is invested in making money from advertising. And, we can go off and run down the line, right? So it's very inauthentic. So like what I'm trying to explain in the new book on Taoism, Luther, is that the whole socialization process creates inauthenticity. It's inescapable. It's just part and parcel of it. And so there's a really good quote by Fritjof Capra in the Tao of Physics, where he said we have to kind of Zen and Taoism especially are about making us natural again. We were trained to become unnatural, and these systems are like a technology to create to make us natural again. And and what you notice is, especially when you follow like paths such as Vedanta, Zen, and Taoism, is when you start to come back into the natural process of the mind and you follow nature as it is, without all of these moral principles and blah 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 of ways that we should be, then you are completely out of step with with everyone else. So and that's just the process, right? They've been socialized. So they've gone through the socialization process. Miss Zen, have you ever visited or lived in Japan? Lived in Japan. I have always loved the richness of culture and the... Wait, one second. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, no worries. Sorry, the guy's doing fire door inspections in the apartment. Exciting. All right. No, Miss Ann, I have not lived in Japan. I visited, but I didn't visit for long periods of time. Guyang and I were planning to go back to Japan. One of the biggest things we want to do in Japan is do the Shikoku, the trail. And so I know that can take a long time to walk, but that's one thing that we want to do. It's really been on my bucket list for a long time. I've always loved the richness of culture and the intrinsic aspect that reigns in this country. Yeah, Japan's beautiful. Very beautiful place. So Heather. Hi, Jason. Heather. Very good to see you. Heather's a new Patreon. Thank you, Heather. Hi, Jason. Was finally able to get on for a moment. Good to see you. Hope you are well. My question for you is, do you follow a specific diet regime? Do you practice ahimsa with regard to food? That's an on and off approach for me, Heather. It's it all depends on sometimes where I am. I'm not opposed to having animal protein, eggs, cheese, meat sometimes. I used to be a full-blown vegetarian for like 6 years, and I developed a few health problems from being a vegan. So the doctor said I needed animal protein, and he said if you didn't want to, he advised meat, but he said if you didn't want to eat meat, you can eat, cheese and eggs and so forth and so on to fix some of the imbalances. But I don't particularly follow a regime anymore. I follow just what is natural, like from a Taoist perspective. And I try to minimize my carbs and my carb intake, and also, a lot of artificial sugars and stuff like that. So, um, also to remember with ahimsa is that ahimsa is also about how we think about the world too, which is a lot of things that people don't speak about when they speak about Jainism and yogic philosophy, which ahimsa is a big part of. And so ahimsa, when you learn from certain teachers, they teach you to not be violent or in terms of thoughts. 1 second. All right, mate. Not too bad. Just checking the vital. Yeah. Thank you. No worries. That's all I need. Thank you so see you later, mate. Have a good one. You too. Oh, I got another drink while he was here. Yeah, so anyway, he was just checking the door if it's fireproof. Anyway, I'm not going to burn alive, apparently. So, yes, ahimsa, Heather, you have to think about a few ways. So usually especially when I'm in India, I will be vegetarian. And when I'm on long sadhanas, I'll be vegetarian for long periods of time. And when I'm in Australia, I've tried to be vegetarian as much as possible, but I'll have eggs and whatnot. And look, if people offer you meat and this and that, as I mentioned with the Buddhist monks, you don't want to get into a game of like avoiding certain foods and like, it's all about also the energy that people put behind stuff as well, right? Like, so you have to stay humble and accepting as well. That's also a part of ahimsa. That's a part of ahimsa, not causing conflict, not causing violence psychologically as well. And also, Heather, you want to think about, you don't want to make diet a big thing. See, the thing is, one thing about Westerners, especially when they come across Eastern philosophy, is they think that they have a firm sense of moralism. And so everything they try to subtract from their life without having a bit of natural, like leaving their naturalness intact. And that's what Taoism would say. You got to try and leave your naturalness intact and not make everything a moralistic game. Yeah. Starfruit, thank you, Jason, for answering questions as well as the great questions from chat. This live stream wouldn't be the same without you. Blessings. Shanti, 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 Starfruit. Thank you. Insalubrious Dityaram. Good to see you again. Awesome. Hi, Jason. Why do gurus charge an ungodly amount of money for their services? I don't have a problem with them charging money, but mostly the amount they charge. Doesn't this alienate a lot of people? Who are you specifically talking about? Because I don't really know any gurus who charge money, but maybe you can let me know. What do they charge money for? Their courses or something like this? Or do they just charge money to see them? That would be very odd if they just charge money to see them, right? I mean, like to sit in their presence. I mean, just let me know what you mean by that. Michelle. My name is Michelle. Okay, I got you. Mexico. My country, Mexico, as many Asian countries, receives criticism and negativity based on many assumptions and how they handle us from the outside. Mexico is deeply spiritual. Yes, it is. Travis, I posted a few questions on Patreon. Oh, Trav, I haven't seen. Sorry, my friend. I will get to them and Yes, your app is working, Trav. It'll be working. I didn't check Patreon last night, my friend. So I will get to your questions ASAP, my friend. Thank you. Sorry about that. Christopher, Richard, if nothing is done, then nothing is left undone. How do you do nothing in an age where we have more pressure to do 10,000 things a day? Not the 10,000 things, but you know what I mean. Don't give in to pressure, Richard Christopher. It's that simple. Don't give in to pressure. I've never been one to give in to pressure. I know that a lot of people will try to make you be a certain way and so forth and so on. Just don't give in to pressure. Make your life a certain way that suits you. Yeah. Don't make your life a certain way to suit others or to suit the culture that you're part of. I mean, unless you want to do that. Yeah. But you're here and it seems that you're interested in Taoism. I'm assuming you don't want that to happen. So definitely you've got to just not give in to the pressure, and you got to slow your life down, and you got to really zero in on what's important in your life. See, a lot of the things, and I find this too, Christopher, is that I'll sometimes before the week, right, I'll have a look at what I have to do this week, because there's a lot to do, like with the YouTube channel and the website and all of these things, you know what I mean? So you got to really zero in on what's the most important, the few most important things to do. And then if the other things don't get done, then so be it. Bing Villamor, thank you for your documentary. It's very inspiring. Thank you, my friend. Okay, what about John C? There are plenty of phony spiritual teachers out there. What are signs that a spiritual teacher might be a phony? That's a really difficult one, John, because I will, let's be frank, right? Like, if a spiritual teacher is putting on too much bravado, too much show, then you know it's a circus. Yeah, you know, if they're walking around like, and they're pretending to be blissed out of their mind, then I mean, it's a dead giveaway, right? So, and also if a teacher lacks the ability to speak with you on your level, that's a big problem. If they can't speak with you on your level, then that's a dead giveaway. It's difficult because there's so many spiritual teachers out there. Like, John, I give you a few examples. There's teachers on YouTube, right? Teachers in air quotes. So they will be YouTubers for a certain amount of time, and they will do things a certain way as just an ordinary person. And then next minute they start wearing monk robes and this and that to get viewers and to get people to watch their videos, right? So, and to basically fool people into believing that they are monks, when if you look back into their earlier content, they are not monks at all. And if they are a monk now, then they're only a novice monk, and they probably should not be teaching because they are not at a certain level. And also, if you understand, especially Buddhist monasteries, you would not be allowed to have a YouTube channel. So you got to really have a good bullshit detector, because a lot of people, unfortunately, online are very gullible when they see certain people like this, because they gravitate towards them because they have different sort of clothes and they deliver certain different knowledge. So it's packaged more neatly. Where for myself, as you guys all know, I can't put on any BS, and I'm more genuine. So I just be me, and I don't need to chuck on any robes or anything like this. Not that there's anything against the saffron robe or anything like that. I wouldn't mind wearing it, but I couldn't live with myself, or I couldn't sleep at night, right? So there are certain signs. And so when they're putting on a show, when they don't speak to you on your level to kind of to lift you up to a certain perspective, then these are dead giveaways. I've been in satsangs, right, where someone has come to the teacher and said they have a real like psychological problem, maybe some sort of problem with depression or something like this. And then the teacher will just speak way over their head. And then, I mean, nothing gets sorted. You know what I mean? Nothing gets worked out. So it just becomes a game of one-upsmanship with the teacher and the student. Like, I have this problem. Who is the one that has this problem? You know, like you have to work through things to elevate, right? And to a certain degree. So Jericho J23, I used to be Christian, but your videos make me get into more and more into Taoism. Well, it's good to hear, Jericho. Good to hear. Bing Villamore, and the ways of God is mysterious, and that the ways of Wu Wei is not conflict with Christianity. It is in conflict with Christianity, actually, because if you look at certain Christian paths, whether people want to believe it or not, it's been a path of force. It's been a path of imperialism. And so Wu Wei is a path of non-interference. And yes, there are some Christians out there who do follow that path, but it's not a stereotypical path of Christianity, Wu Wei. It's its own thing. And Christianity, Jesus is not the way, not the only way. There are other ways. To say that it's the only way, again, is a scriptural privilege that Christians use to discount other traditions, which is insensitive. That's how Christianity can go into Hinduism and into India, and undermine Hindus. They can say, but the Bible says Jesus is the only way. So it's a scriptural privilege. So it's more of a political analogy of the universe and a political doctrine. That's what it is. Because it has that written into text. Quran has the same written into text, which means then that they can execute demographic swamping, where Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism are primarily focused on the actual ultimate reality and the actual enlightenment of the individual, not imposing the tradition on other people from other parts of the world. So Bing, you are not right there, actually. And as Ming said, there is no sin in Taoist philosophy. Touche. And that's actually what people have to accept. And Christians themselves have to accept this. It's a different tradition. It's what makes the world a great place. It's the intolerance Christianity have towards other traditions, where other people which is why a lot of people are turning off at Christianity. Look at Europe, right? Christianity it's dying day by day because of this mentality. Even the Pope has mentioned that Christianity needs a renovation and needs to reconsider some of these, beliefs. And see, Christianity is still a belief system, where Eastern spirituality is about understanding that beliefs themselves are the problem, right? Beliefs themselves are the problem. It's what causes conflict. You saying that Jesus is the only way instantly causes a split amongst humanity and is divisive. So you really have to think about that. That's just the way it is, Bing. It's just the way it is. And Eastern spirituality, and I've got a video on why God is a bad word. Eastern spirituality and Christianity are completely diametrically opposed in the idea of God. God and Christianity is only at the Ishvara level in Eastern spirituality, because it's still a God that's kind of ruling the world, so to speak, where the substratum of existence, the Brahman and the Tao, loves and nourishes all and does not lord it over them. Sin does not exist. Luther, I stopped being a Christian as a kid when I heard the belief that Christianity was the only way. I refuse to agree with all non-Christians going to hell. It doesn't make sense. It's stupid. Again, Luther, it's a scriptural privilege, and it's put in there it's intentionally put in there for demographic swamping. It's a political, it's a political principle, and some religions follow that because it's easier to then convert other people and to convince other people that this is the way, right? So it's frustrating for Eastern spiritual traditions because they don't have that. And so then like I've seen Christians in places like Nepal, for example, who have treated Nepalis very poorly because Nepalis are primarily Hindus and Buddhists. And I've seen Christians from Korea, America, and all over the place come to Nepal and basically belittle the Nepali people, saying, they're poor people. They don't know. And I'm just like, I have one friend who has zero tolerance for it. He'll tell him to get out and stop like undermining them. And it's pretty silly when you think about it. First name, last name. I heard you and Alan once say Buddhism is Hinduism stripped for export. Can you explain? It seems that the Buddha's rejection of the Vedas is a point of contention. It can be a point of contention, but you have to remember that if we look at the Upanishadic era, first name, and we look at the development of Vedanta and Buddhism and also Jainism with Mahavira, then they are very similar philosophies. And we have to remember that the Upanishads is basically the end of the Vedas, right? So it's a more of a philosophical exploration of the Vedas. And so that's where this idea, and again, it's tongue-in-cheek, right? Buddhism for Hinduism. You don't want to take it so literally. It's more tongue-in-cheek as well. But if you look at a lot of the fundamental philosophical concepts within Buddhism and Hinduism are very similar. And if you look at, if you take a lot of the culture out of Hinduism, a lot of people say you end up sort of with something like Buddhism or similar to Buddhism. So you are right in saying that the rejection of the Vedas is a point of contention. But also you have to realize that did Buddha completely reject the Vedas too, Or do you see my messages above? No. Can you post them again? Paula, no, I didn't get you. Maybe they're not all coming up. Not sure if you get my previous questions. Do you know about Tom Capewell? No, I don't. He says there's free will. I can't believe that's possible. What do you say? I've got a few videos on that, actually, Paula. You might want to check out my video on Advaita Vedanta, which will explain that. And see, this is the thing. We have free will to a certain degree. This is what I was trying to say before, Paula, where if we look at we are an expression of the Tao or of Brahman, then there is only the one will expressing itself in numerous forms, right? And so we have this illusion that we have free will, from a persona. But so when the difference here with the free will argument is that when you start to downregulate your persona, you realize that you don't really have free will to the degree that you thought you had free will. Yeah. So I would say go and have a look at my video on Advaita Vedanta. I go a little bit into free will, and actually I have other videos on it. Bing, the cultivation of our yin should be integrated in the school system. People today are full of anxiety to the point of committing suicide, which is a waste of energy. That's true. But again, we live in a yang-focused world, Bing, young-focused world. And I speak about this actually in Effortless Living and in Fasting the Mind. We live in a yin-deficient world where people are not cultivating harmonious dispositions in the self and are not coming back to a place of peace and calm. And we're basically burning our system out. And so when you see, as I've explained in a lot of my books, when you see teen suicide rates in South Korea and places like that, and you see that that's all a result of a super busy and rote education system, then you have to really reevaluate. But they're not going to reevaluate because they think that just cramming knowledge into a young child's mind is going to bring fruit in the future, which it doesn't. You have no time to consolidate memories. This is why you need time away from certain things, because you consolidate memories, right? That's how you consolidate memories. You sleep, you get a lot of rest. You can't just go to bed at 2 a.m. and wake up at 6 and go back to school and think that you're going to learn a lot of things. You're not going to. So that's the problem is that the corporations, the schools, the businesses, the governments, and this and that are not going to take their foot off the gas. You have to take your foot off the gas and, in some sense, lead by example and follow a yin lifestyle. Paula, funny, I guess you are replying it. Okay. Why do you, maybe I didn't miss your question then. Why do you think Lord Shiva is so much important? Well, no, you got to remember that I was just mentioning Shiva in the sense of the Shaiva tradition. But Shiva in the Shaiva tradition is a representation of Brahman, the ultimate reality. So it's a image of, to get to rep. Shiva is basically used as a tool to understand the ultimate reality. Shiva means also, not this, like it's something beyond this. And so Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma are representations of Brahman. They make up the Trimurti. So Shiva can be important. What was I going to say? Shiva can be important to you if you are a Shaiva devotee. But myself personally, I've studied a lot of Shaivism and I love it. And what I highly recommend is the Ishvara Gita, Lord Shiva's song, if anyone has ever read that. It's translated by Andrew Nicholson. Awesome book. And again, it's like a Nididhyasana text. It's like a non-dual meditation. And so that's why it's important, Paula. That's why Shiva is important. Shiva is a non-dual philosophy. So in same as like Buddhism and Taoism. So very important. Travis, thank you for your answer. Travis, thank you, my friend. Thomas, hello. This still live? Still here, Thomas. Still here. Killing it. What are some of your spiritual practices? How would you recommend a relative novice to begin? Ryan, some of my spiritual practices mainly are Vipassana, Zen open awareness meditation, Qigong, and Hatha yoga. So in no particular order, but I try to have a healthy blend of those, and also realize that I have only 24 hours in the day to do a lot of things. So you don't want to, be all day in meditation. You have to also live your life, but you have to find a healthy balance for yourself. I would recommend highly for you to start with Vipassana and Zen open awareness meditation. Zen open awareness meditation is kind of like a basic meditation that most people probably have practiced before, but don't know the name or the terminology behind it. And the irony is, and this is what Shunryu Suzuki said, some of these meditation practices that you begin with, right, you'll actually end up returning to, and they'll become probably your general meditation practice, going forward. Chris, Lost by AVC is based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Interesting. I will have to check that out, my friend. Guys, 85 thumbs up. Remember, give us a thumbs up if you're in here. There's 60 in the room. Will, wow, I had a professor in Atlanta that nearly had an aneurysm when he heard I read Alan Watts. Not an academician. Okay. Yeah, whatever. Well, I wouldn't worry about that. A lot of people get very, especially like professors and that, will get very annoyed when there's actually people out there doing the work, like Alan. And you know, Alan had a really good point once where he said one of the problems with academia is that scholars and professors and that they do philosophy, right? It's their job. They do philosophy. They don't live by the philosophy. Their life is not informed by the philosophy, right? And so this really annoys a lot of professors when you start to mention this sort of thing. Yeah. Because, I mean, there's some truth behind it, right? A lot of professors and universities and that do philosophy. They don't really follow the practice. They may be able to speak about the tradition in a very beautiful way, but they're not engaged practitioners. And I don't really know what to say about that. It's not that it's not that it's bad or good or bad. It's just the way it is. But that's why people have a nervous reaction or professors have a nervous reaction when they hear Alan Watts, right? It's kind of interesting because in recent years I've been invited to like universities in America, especially. So maybe there's a softening of that because I'm not a professor either. I mean, I couldn't do it. Aaron Ball, a friend of mine, actually just bought me a Zhuangzi book unexpectedly. Aaron, that's awesome, man. Awesome. AD, have you ever considered walking the Camino? Yes, I have, my friend. I have. Have you done it? Let me know if you've done it and what you think. Preston, namaskaram. Thank you, my friend. Glad to have you back with us. Heather, that makes so much sense. Thank you for talking about it. You are the best. You are the best, Heather. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you so much, my friend. Anais is back here. Awesome, Anais. Good morning. Good morning, Anais. Yeah. Wow. Where are you? Where are you? All right. Oh, Insalubris. That's what you meant. Yeah. The courses they offer in meditation and spirituality, like in Tibetan Buddhism. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there are some courses that are can be high price, and maybe like I don't know, maybe for good reason. Yeah. Maybe they're trying to keep the monastery alive, or maybe there's a lot of reasons. We don't really know a lot of personal reasons why certain gurus and that charge certain amount of money. I guess in the end of the day, everyone's got to make a living. But I the I guess the problem that maybe you and I would have with that is that the teachings are not there for the students freely. Yeah. Um, which is kind of counterintuitive to a certain degree. But people have their own reasons, and I don't really know a lot of them personally. I even heard that even Muji prices are high. Yeah, and I heard Muji's. I mean, I've never gone to any of his paid things. I knew Muji 11 years ago, so a long time ago, when everything was for free and satsang was genuine, and the satsangs were only in Tiruvannamalai. It had a very authentic Advaita Vedanta feel. I can't say too much for what it's turned into, but Trina, I found Sadhguru through YouTube is quite genuine. Yeah, I like Sadhguru. He's a good fella. He's like a wise old man, I guess. Yeah. Interesting. Same with Muji. Like I remember Sadhguru about 13 years ago, and a lot of the information you get from Sud back in that time was really, really good. If you look at some of the older Sadhguru satsangs, I mean, his YouTube channel has kind of turned into a little bit of, this and that now, but like some of the older material really, he dives deeper into a lot of the yogic philosophy. Luther, what are the specific rituals and services that are part of Hinduism, and are there certain ones that are better to start with? No, not particularly. You just go there, Luther. Just visit a temple or an ashram if you have the opportunity. Yeah, visit the one in your local area. Don't feel intimidated. You don't need to know a lot, right? Like, so for example, Guyang and I, we go to a temple far in the south of Brisbane. It's a Ganesha temple, and some Australians pop in there every now and again for the morning aarti, for the morning ritual, and like, the thing, the beautiful thing about Indians is they don't expect you to know everything, right? They are more so just happy that you're there. They're stoked that you're there. They're really stoked that you're interested in their tradition, their culture. You really get this from Indian people a lot, especially when you live there. Basically, like, the reason why I'm friends with a lot of people in India is because they just like that I like India. So, I mean, they like more than that, obviously, but like, it's a segue or a entrance into the place. But you don't have to know a lot of things about the rituals and this and that. Like, for example, I have the Ganesha temple here in South Brisbane, right? The Brahmin will he'll go through and do the rituals for each of the idols, and then we'll come to the main idol, and then we do the bindi, all of this and that. So you will be guided through the process. So I wouldn't feel too intimidated about that, Jim. 89 likes, people. Let's get it up to 100 likes, yeah? Let's get it up to 100 likes. That would help me out. 100 thumbs up, that would help me out a lot. Like I said to all of you guys, I said earlier in this live stream, I know a lot of you are contemplatives. I know you are serious about Eastern spirituality, but then a lot of you ask me, why does my channel not get a lot of attention, and so forth and so on? And I know a lot of you are contemplators, but it's important that the videos that I put out, it's important that you give a thumbs up, you drop a comment. The algorithm on YouTube is dumb, right? So it only understands engagement. If there's engagement, it starts to recommend my videos to the people who are looking for this content. And that's what's important, right? People who are looking for this content, but don't know that my content is out there, like how all of you came across me, then that's how it happens. It comes through likes and comments, and if you can share the videos and that. So that's if you care about the work that I'm doing on this channel. But in Slabris, I'm from Guwahati. Guwahati. That's we spoke about this before. There's a famous temple on the river there, didn't we? What's the temple? Oh, I always forget the temple's name. Will, solid. Will, good job. That Yahweh, what a guy. 4,000 years old, and he thinks he owns the joint. Kids, what you gonna do? Conversation between Chinese dragon and Buddha. from Sinway. Oh, awesome. That's actually a comic. Sinfest web comic by, man, that's awesome. Thank you, Will. It is kind of funny, yeah? That old Yahweh thinks he runs the joint. Rael, if the ultimate goal of life is self-realization, does creation have no purpose with reincarnating for? And not the purpose from an Eastern perspective would be your own liberation. The reason why you reincarnate is to become liberated. That's the reason why you would be continued on the cycle, and life continues to facilitate this process for you. So that would be the perspective of the Eastern spiritual traditions. It's facilitating your own enlightenment. The whole idea, I heard a teacher way back in the day in satsang told me, the reason why you exist is to realize the formless, and that's it. And so that's what the nature of existence is all about. And the universe is there to facilitate that process for you. So, and that's what's reincarnating. So it has a purpose. And that some people would say, well, that could be human centric. And in some sense it is. But the idea from the Eastern philosophical perspective is that you have to realize that you're not special and you're a part of something much greater than yourself. And then you are liberated, right? When you are trying to understand liberation through being a persona and an individual and look at me, and you start wearing all of these cool things, and you start speaking softly and pretend to be this spiritual person, then that's where you'll come across obstacles. But when you start to downregulate your sense of self, and you realize that you are actually one with the world, one with nature, one with the Tao, then that's what will facilitate realization. And so that's why you are reincarnating. And to think about the processes of the totality of the universe, it has its own thing as well, right? Its own function and process that it's going through. That's kind of beyond human comprehension. 1 second, people. Be back in a second. Sorry, everyone. 51 still here. Awesome. I got the bladder of a 120-year-old man. Is that right? Or a bladder of a 2-year-old? I don't know what it is. Anyway, when I drink this tea, goes right through. Oh, we got a super chat. Nikki, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Hype. I like that one. Awesome. You guys are awesome, man. I really tell you what, you always blow me away. Gopal Krishna. Oh, man. Been a long time. Enlightenment is the supreme God or pure awareness, witnessing its own glory. 100%, my friend. Gopal, it's been a long time. Good to have you back. Like I said, I just love you guys. Yeah, love all of you, man. It means a lot to me to have this, to be able to communicate with this community. And I like to see a lot of familiar faces in here, which is awesome too. Remember, there's 97 likes. Let's get it up over the 100, yeah? Let's roll up over that one. Let's have a look. Ryan McNett, is it incorrect to choose to become an arhat rather than a bodhisattva, or is either path noble? Why? Well, you don't want to make it like a it's an either or thing too, Ryan. Yeah, you don't want to make it an either or thing. The thing is that eventually on the path in Buddhism, you have to become the Buddha, like you said, arhat rather than a Buddha, eventually. So I have a video called the Jivan Mukta versus Bodhisattva. So there are two different mentalities of, so for example, a Jivan Mukta being liberated in this life as opposed to a Bodhisattva who is someone who is dedicated to liberating others, right? But not in the sense of like saving others. It's a very Buddhist way. Yeah, it's about teaching the Dharma to those who are willing to receive the Dharma. So we also don't want to overblow the Bodhisattva ideal, which is a big problem in the West, where people overblow the Bodhisattva ideal, and they turn it into some sort of savior, like in relation to Christianity, which is not. It's, as a Bodhisattva, you're supposed to just teach those who are willing to hear the Dharma, who are willing to embody the knowledge. I guess you could say both paths are noble, but in the end of the day, you need to have complete liberation. I mean, it's not about being, and as I said in that video, it's not about being a bodhisattva can be a level, so to speak. I shouldn't use the word level, but like a stage unto reaching Buddhahood. But that should be the focus. A bodhisattva should be focused still on becoming a Buddha. It shouldn't be focused on just helping others. You help others in your own way onto becoming a Buddha as well. And a lot of other traditions don't actually believe in that sort of Mahayana bodhisattva ideal. We've got to remember it's a Mahayana ideal. It's not a Theravada ideal. So this idea that all beings will be enlightened and liberated one day. And look, who knows? Maybe, right? Maybe in the Satya Yuga. We don't know. But until that time, I would say to you, Ryan, focus on attaining Buddhahood, focus on diving deeper and deeper within. If that means you become a bodhisattva in future, then yeah, so be it. That's the way of nature, yeah. Let's have a look. What's the Preston say? I've been really stuck with with what to do in my life. On one side, I have my mum in my family who wants and expects me to go into a trade school and get a good welding job for many years and to settle down and live a normal life. But deep down, I have such a strong urge to leave all this chaos and travel and dive deeper into my spirituality and reconnect with the true reality. I feel torn on what to do. Preston, you've asked this question a few times, haven't you? And in a lot of the live streams, I remember. And my friend, what did you say you're going to do? You're going to do a welding job. Oh, okay. You're going to go to trade school. Look, it's your life, Preston. It's your life in the end of the day, yeah? It's always difficult giving advice on family issues and that when I don't know the dynamic. But I can only speak from my own perspective, right? When I was 19 and I was living at home with mom and dad, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't stay in my hometown anymore. It just wasn't for me, yeah. And I had a deep longing and urge to dive into adventure and to explore the world, right? And so that's what I did. But I did it in a way that I knew that I would never go backwards, right? And so I'm 41 now and I haven't gone backwards. So I've never gone back. Well, my mum and dad have both passed away. So there's no going back to living with them now, right? So it's you've sometimes got to make the right decision for yourself, right? But you've also got to put yourself in a situation where you can't also fall backwards. Yeah. If you're really dedicated to the spiritual path, you want to put yourself in your life in a situation in a very pragmatic and practical way that you're not going to take 2 steps or 3 steps backwards in your spiritual process. And I know that sounds too practical, but you've also got to add a bit of practicality to it, because I know some people, right, who have said, I'm out of here. I'm leaving Australia. I'm going to do what you do and go and live in India and this and that. And I have a friend who did that a long time ago, and they didn't last because they thought that it was just going to open up for them, and they went through all their money, they burnt all their cash, and then they ended up back at a job that they didn't want to ever have, and have been stuck at it basically ever since. Yeah. So you've got to be really clever. And what I gain from conversing with you on here is that you're like me, where your needs are not very high. Yeah. So, I mean, like Guy, a lot of you probably already know, but Guy and myself, we don't really have a lot of artificial needs. So our expenses are very low. I mean, the biggest expense in our lives is running all the YouTube channel and all of that, right? And so we don't have a lot of expenses. We don't have cars and mortgages and so forth and so on. So my advice would be for you to follow. You have to follow the call to adventure. And if the call to adventure is that strong urge that you have, as as Joseph Campbell said, you have to accept the call to adventure as well. Yeah. If you don't accept the call, look, there's a few ways of looking at this, right? You can stay and do the job and then never know what could have happened, or you can go, and if it doesn't work out, you can always come back. I mean, that's always my philosophy. 99 likes, thumbs up. Let's get it over 100 people if we can. I'd appreciate that. Okay, Raj, according to you, what is enlightenment that is spoken about much in spiritual traditions? What is its value in human life? Its value in human life. What do you mean by that, Raj? Like value in social life and cultural life? Like if we look at enlightenment from the Eastern perspective, it's the point of life itself for a human being. Yeah, is to become enlightened, to realize that the persona system that we have all been indoctrinated to believe we are is not who we truly are. We are actually enlightenment is not a process. It's not somewhere to get to. This whole search for enlightenment is actually the wrong approach. I speak about this in Enlightenment Now, right? So enlightenment itself is our fundamental nature, but we've been cultivated and nurtured to become this certain person. And so its value in human life is that it's the ultimate kind of experience that a human has the opportunity to abide in. So now how enlightenment will benefit social life and this and that, well, I don't know, you know. Travis, no worries at all about missed posts. If you don't mind my asking, what do you think of Rupert Spira and his idea of the direct path? I don't mind Rupert, but I have not watched a lot, Travis. I have not watched a lot. And actually, the direct path is not his teaching. Rupert Spira teaches Advaita Vedanta. So, but it's Advaita Vedanta without the tradition and culture, right? Muji does similar. Yeah. So these kind of non-dual teachers teach those the direct path. It's very similar to Ramana Maharshi, but Ramana Maharshi still taught Advaita Vedanta through the culture and the tradition. And I've always said, actually, Eckhart Tolle is the same. He teaches the same sort of direct path. Well, he at least used to. But I've always said on my channel and in my videos that it's very important that people understand the traditions and cultures. And like I've learned a lot of Vedanta from proper swamis and and also from living in Tiruvannamalai, where Ramana Maharshi lived. And so I obviously like what Rupert does, but I still think that there is a lot to be said about understanding the actual tradition and the philosophical framework. What I find in some of these Western non-dual schools, that is kind of like a, sort of a watered down version of Advaita Vedanta, is I find that a lot of people can't progress in their spiritual practice or their understanding of the teachings because they don't have the philosophical framework. They don't have the Sanskrit terminology to understand the deeper aspects of the tradition. And this is where I think like somewhere like the Vedanta Center and the Ramakrishna Mission actually provide a lot, like especially if you listen to someone like Swami Sarvapriyananda in the modern day, or if you had listened to like Swami Pravananda back, 30, 40 years ago, and people like swamis like this. So I think that there's a lot to be said about understanding the tradition and the culture, because it can give you a philosophical framework of the tradition. And if anything I've known from a decade of teaching is where people slip up on the path is they don't have a philosophical framework of the tradition. And so they can still be very emotional, very driven by their ego and by their persona. So some people say, oh, it's way too intellectual. It's like, yeah, but we are intelligent beings. We need sometimes an intellectual basis to understand things. There's that old phrase, right, Trav? The map is not the territory. But the map itself is important, but we don't want to confuse the map with the territory. Mike, love you, brother. Thank you. Thank you for being part of the community, Mike, and thank you everyone else for being part of the community. I appreciate all of you. Judy, I eat with chopsticks sometimes. That's awesome, Judy. Actually, eating with chopsticks is very good. Very good for mindful eating. I remember when I first used to start eating chopsticks when it was about 15 years ago, and your hand is way down the chopsticks. It looks uncoordinated, but once you get the hang of it, eating with chopsticks is great. Yes, Gopal Krishna Pai. Swami Sarvapriyananda is the best exponent of the Vedanta in recent times. He is a monk of the Ramakrishna Mission. Yes, he is. Swami has a way with words, that's for sure. Patrick, virtue and morality are worlds apart. Now that's a statement right there, and that's one of the big points of Eastern spirituality, particularly Taoism. The problem in the West is people mix both. They think that virtue comes from morality, but a lot of people who pretend to be moral in the Western world often have thousands of agendas and are self-interested. They are not naturally virtuous, and so they can be hard to trust. Right? They can be hard to trust. John, I've checked it out. Thanks, brother. Thank you, John. Appreciate you, my friend. Trina, love hearts. Love you, Trina. Thank you, Bing, for sharing. That's the one, Raj. The Kamakshi temple in Kamakya. That's the one. Have you been, Raj? Have you been? I really want to go to that temple. I actually spoke to Insalubrious about this in maybe the Mahashivaratri live stream back earlier in the year. I remember that Insalubrious for whatever reason. Yeah, the center of Tantric Vidya. Will, but American exceptionalism. I am tongue-in-cheek. Love it. Humor is always important. Go, Paul. I love your videos. Thank you, my friend. Yeah. Preston, can you speak on what to whether or not things like the vibhuti and the rudraksha seeds have an effect on you and your practices? I feel more centered and more concentrated. I'm not sure if it may be the placebo effect. Well, we could say possibly it could be the placebo effect, Preston, but for myself personally, because I'm the nut that I am, what was very important for me, because of my understanding of the traditions, was to get rudraksha from Arunachala, from Tiruvannamalai, and I did that a long time ago, and I still have those rudrakshas, and a lot of people may not know this, that in the Hindu traditions, that once you get rudraksha mala, you should never replace them ever again. They should be those rudraksha malas should be yours for good. I mean, they're going to probably have a little bit of a stench on them if you live to 110 10 or 20, but that's part of the tradition as well. There's supposed therapeutic benefits with rudraksha and energetic qualities within the seeds that are important as well. But I think with our meditation practice, the actual beads and the shape of the rudraksha also facilitate more concentrated meditations. And so on the tours, I say here used to have in India, because since this whole circus has been going on, no tours have happened. But I would always greet people with a rudraksha mala. So everyone who came to the tour would get rudraksha mala beads, and I would give them some other things as well. But that was very important for me as an introduction to the tour and the journey that we're about to, and the pilgrimage that we are about to embark on together. ZipZen50, what's up, man? What's up, ZipZen? Adamus Bliss, I'm thrilled to be among you fine 55 folks who found your woo ways to Jason Gregory live stream. Appreciate all you do, Jason. Thank you. All love to you all from the Redwood Forest. Love it. Thank you. This live stream's been really good today. You guys have actually provided a lot of great questions. Ryan, so you're right in saying that an arhat should become a Buddha, right? That would be the whole, how do I say that? The whole sequence of the Buddhist philosophy. An arhat, essentially is a Buddha, right? In some sense. So, and that's what actually, as I said, one should strive to be. I don't know if any of you know the whole story of the 18 arhats and stuff like that, but it's probably for another time. Insalubrious, I'm in no way a superstitious person, but I sometimes experience intense feelings of fear during Vipassana meditation. It goes away the moment I open my eyes. Am I doing something wrong? It sometimes stops me from meditating for a few days. Yeah, work with that insalubrious. Sometimes certain meditation practices are not for everyone too, yeah? So Vipassana might not be your cup of tea. It really might be the case. And something like Zen open awareness meditation might be better for you. That's why I kind of provide those sorts of differences of meditation practices, because they have a different effect on different people. And again, temperamentally, we're all different, right? Our temperaments are different. So certain things will have a better effect than other things. I would say it goes away after a moment I open my eyes. I don't know. I would explore And so I would actually explore that feeling, because my idea would be that that feeling of fear during Vipassana is something that you just have to work through and observe in the practice. And that may actually get you to a deeper level of meditation. I mean, especially when I was a beginner, there was a lot of different feelings I would experience when I was meditating, because it was new, for example. And I mean, when we're younger, we're not told to sit down and close our eyes, are we? And look at and observe our mind. But some of those intense feelings can occur because I don't know if you're new to the practice, or it can be something that's not actually related to the practice itself, but related to maybe some overlaying samskaras you may have inside, some subliminal imprints, or some sort of subconscious content that is kind of bubbling up to the surface. And sometimes it can be good to work through that, to kind of observe that and to feel that experience. Gary, g'day, Jason. Just want to say hi. Gary, good to see you, my friend. Art, oh my God. Hi. Art, awesome. Art, you're awesome, my friend. Thank you for being here. Tommy, I've been researching and trying to implement Taoism into my life for almost 2 years now, but it doesn't stick. Can't help but think I'm doing something wrong. If you give me some more context, Tommy, then we could probably unpack that a little bit. Preston, thank you very much. Travis, thank you for the chat, super chat. Travis, thank you. Awesome, my friend. Preston, thank you very much. Jason, you've been a huge impact on me, and I really appreciate all the help you've given me and everyone here. I have a lot of thinking to do. Thank you. Thank you, Preston. Love you, my friend. Paul Cooper, greetings from the North Shore of New Zealand. Paul, welcome. Yes, Paul, the full replay of the live stream will be exclusive on Patreon, my friend. It'll be up for a few hours after we finish on YouTube, but it will be moved across to Patreon. So if you want to become a member on Patreon, you can watch the live stream. Art, really good to have you here. Ryan, we're looking forward to those tours, Jason. Yes, just a question. When they come back, how much does it usually cost? Got to start saving. Wow, it's hard to say, because we don't even know what the actual landscape's going to look like. Like, it always depends on like accommodation fees and so forth and so on. And I'm assuming, Ryan, that especially from the prices I've been seeing in some places in Asia, that there's like massive discounts on accommodation and stuff like that, because there's just no tourism. But I'm assuming when we get back into action, that tourism will somewhat have normalized. And look, I'm like you. I can't wait. Guyang and I, we like nothing more than sharing experiences with people like yourself, and seeing the look on your face when we go to these places. I mean, it's nothing gives me more the joy than that. Obviously, talking with you guys here now, come on, but you know what I mean. So, cost, like the last one we had, I think we did a 12-day retreat. 12 days, and it was about 3,000 US, something along those lines. And that covers obviously all accommodation. And actually in that tour, we did South India, and we actually did also Bodh. So there was the domestic flight also included in that, maybe 3,500, something like that. Now, look, that may seem a lot, but when you talk about 12, 13 days of accommodation and a domestic flight, I mean, it adds up. You know what I mean? Some of the nightmare for Guy and I It's just actually organizing the accommodation and stuff for the tour. And I guess there'll be a lot of anxiety next year when we start doing it because, yeah, I mean, do I have to mention, you know what I mean? Let's not mention that here. So, Aaron, any physical objects help in meditating better? Well, just as I discussed with Preston with the Rudraksha, I would go out and get yourself a Rudraksha mala bead. And Aaron, if I ever see you and if you do come on tour, then I will get you a Rudraksha mala beads from some special places in India. Nikki, love your book, Fasting Mind. Nikki, thank you, my friend. So I'm so glad you liked that book. As I've said on here before, Fasting the Mind was the book that was the quickest I got published. So I remember giving the manuscript and book proposal to Inner Traditions, and then I heard back from them in 2 days. I mean, that's just unheard of. They were just like, let's do this straight away. And I'm like, all right. So they obviously liked it, just like you. So Ryan, is it better to meditate in lotus or easy pose? Either or, my friend. Or is it just as okay to meditate with a bench or a seat? Again, either or. It all depends on, what you're capable of. A lot of the hysteria around lotus posture, right? Like, and the whole idea that if you sit in lotus posture, it's the best for you. That goes back into yogic cultures, So, like, obviously, with yogic cultures, they were very, they're stretched out, right? So, and not everyone's going to be like that. That's not going to determine your meditation practice if you're in a lotus pose. So, but it can act as something that's beneficial in your practice if you're capable of doing it. I mean, I can get in a lotus pose, but I can't sit in a lotus pose for long periods of time, myself personally. I mean, I've had certain knee injuries and that when I was younger and stuff from playing sport, which kind of inhibits that for me. But for some people, they can do it easily. Yeah. But Ryan, I wouldn't make that a thing. Yeah. Concentrate on what's happening in your meditation practice, or what's not happening, I should say, as opposed to like the bodily postures. Travis, again, an incredibly helpful answer. Thank you, Travis. You're the best, my friend. And Slowbris, I've been practicing regularly for the last 8 months. I mostly focus on body sensations and observing passing thoughts. That's that's Vipassana. But in Slowbris, you want to practice. Make sure you practice Anapanasati. Anapanasati is awareness of respiration, of breath. And you want to get the breath not to the point where you're intentionally breathing, but where you're observing your breath in a natural way. Now, that's a very difficult state to get to, because as soon as we put our awareness on our breathing, we start to alter the way we breathe. But then what happens is, with more observation and more focus and concentration, you can circumvent that problem. So that's what I would add to that practice for you. I think that what you're doing is right with the body sensations and observing passing thoughts. But in some sense, like, observing passing thoughts is some sense like a secondary in importance in Vipassana, because it's mainly Anapanasati and the awareness of sensations, Vedana in Pali. So you got to really observe your breathing, and then that gets down into the sensorium of your body. So, and then you can start to observe sensations and this and that. But then after that, I don't know if you've experienced that, there should be an emptiness after this process. Your mind should get to a state where it's very tranquil and you're in a meditative state of mind. Nothing's happening. It's just you are, and there's no sensation. There's no breather. It's all, I don't know if you get, I'm sure you have those experiences. Saying experiences is a strange thing, right? But Paul, thank you. Thank you, Paul. What do we got? Tommy, this is what you were saying. I feel like instead of practicing Taoism, I've always researched it and been trying to prepare myself. So when I fail, I fall back on learning and reading about the Tao instead of just doing it. It's a cycle of I need to research more that I can't break out of. Tommy, there's nothing wrong with this. You don't want to make it a sort of an analytical, intellectual game. And now, why I'm saying that is people don't consider that their over analysis of what they're doing and is getting in the way. So, like for example, you get a lot of people online who say, "Oh, you've spoke about the Tao, you already don't know the Tao," and you're just like, those people, right? They got to like try to like they've probably read one bad translation of the Tao Te Ching and think that that's the way it is. And so there's nothing we can say about that. So as mature people like yourself, Tommy, it's you don't want to think it's a bad thing to study or fall back on your study. It's actually falling back on your study can actually help recalibrate your focus of how you should be living. This is why I always tell people to actually theory and practice go hand in hand. And actually in the spiritual traditions, they don't really make a distinction. See, we in the West, we make a distinction because we categorize everything. This is theory. This is practice. Where in the East, it's like this. It's commingled. And so it's one sequence, right? It's one process. And so what would be beneficial for you is probably to practice and study Taoism at the same time and just live like that. You read a chapter or a few chapters of the Tao Te Ching or the Zhuangzi a day, and you meditate every day, but you also live as a humble person every day, right? The system of thought, the technology of Taoism is supposed to make you more humble, and being more humble makes you more virtuous in turn. Yeah. So that's also what should be happening. And so that's why I say to you, make sure you do it in tandem. Like try not to separate, like, or make it a game like what a lot of Westerners do. Like, oh, I'm not reading the Tao Te Ching anymore. I don't need to learn anymore and this and that because I'm just living the Tao. And then you stand on their foot and they punch you on the face. So they're not really learning the Tao. Yeah. And so you really have to see, and this thing where people say that, oh, but Lao Tzu said I have to unlearn. You know what Lao Tzu means by unlearning? Unlearning the socialization process we've all endured. It doesn't mean you stop learning altogether. I mean, he was a librarian and he wrote 81 small chapters of the Tao Te Ching. He wasn't an idiot. Yeah. So the unlearning of Taoism is unlearning the socialization process we've endured to become natural again. Does that mean not learn any Taoist thought? You should continue to learn Taoist content. Yeah. I mean, you are on my channel because you're learning more about Taoism, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. It's innocent. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't want to make it an analytical game. And in the New Age spirituality, there's always this game of one-upsmanship. I get it all the time. People try to compete with me on my channel all the time. Oh, Jason, you speak about the Tao. You don't know the Tao. Okay. I just think I'm just dismissive of such a comment. I mean, it's immature because you don't know me personally. And you're also discounting that as human beings, we are intelligent, and the linguistic aspect of our consciousness is very important to understand certain deep concepts. Does it mean that the linguistic landscape is the Tao? Not essentially, but we have it. And so it's a beneficial tool. Insalubrious. Yep, I have experienced the feeling of emptiness a few times, very short periods though. That's great. So do you see, you got to, it's more about becoming more familiar with the emptiness. It's like any training in Insalubrious. The more you train and the more you experience or you abide in that place, the more then that will become more accustomed to your state of being, as opposed to being a person and so forth and so on. So, no, man. Have a good day, all. No, man. Thank you. It's sunset time here. Time for a walking meditation with the guitar. I love it. Nathaniel Medina, great to have you with us. I love your content. Thank you, Nathaniel. Opinions on John C. H. U's translation of Tao Te Ching. I have never read this one, Nathaniel. And someone else asked me about this in the last live stream. Maybe I'll have to go out and get myself a copy, but I didn't. I have not read that one yet. So, any more questions, people? How is everyone enjoying the content these days anyway? Heather, I got to come. Oh, wait up. Natalie, what is the self? Natalie, what do you mean by the self? Are you talking about the self as a, see, this is a thing with English can be a problem. Self as a person or the self, the Atman? Let me know what you think. Art, really enjoying your podcast. Thank you, Art. Will, happily swimming through it. You're the man, Will. Heather, I got to come back. Yay. I am so glad. I used to be a fundamentalist Christian. I left Christianity. I have ill feelings about Christians and their adherence to dogma. Is there a way to stop that? Heather, I think that a lot of people get annoyed with that whole thing. Yeah. The whole, the belief that non-believers are going to hell and so forth and so on. So I would say it's not good to have ill feelings towards anyone, right? So, and we can say their adherence to dogma is stupid. We all know that as intelligent people. So, it's more, you got to just concentrate more on yourself, Heather, more self-work. I don't know if you're engaged in any sort of meditation practice, but also more study, particularly of the Eastern traditions of Taoism, especially maybe a form of Zen Buddhism or Vedanta, and just understanding that they themselves are indoctrinated, right? They're indoctrinated and they need followers. That's the whole tradition depends on followers. It doesn't depend on the understanding the nature of consciousness, what we're doing here. So you yourself have to focus more on your own spiritual cultivation as opposed to, worrying about what some silly Christian says to you about how you should be or who you should be. Bring more observation to yourself, Heather. Bring more like discernment to your reactions to this sort of behavior. And there's a practice in Sanskrit called vairagya. And vairagya can also mean non-reaction to the contents in your mind. So developing kind of a distance between your emotional responses to certain things that in some sense are silly, right? Like to be a Christian who think everyone is, who everyone's going to hell and stuff like that. And being such a strict Christian can be, is highly problematic and actually violent. But if you can make a distance between your actual reactions and emotions to that, that's more beneficial for yourself because it's going to cultivate more peace. And it's not going to have you focus on the things that are making you angry towards them or like annoyed with them in any sense. Yeah. in the end of the day, when we follow the Eastern spiritual path, it's more about ourselves and our own evolution as an individual. And so, look, if you look at them from their perspective, like I said with William Walker Atkinson, they're on their own level of evolution in their life, and they're going to have to come to they're going to have to eat some pretty bitter pills eventually one day, maybe not in this life, but they're going to have to realize that the force aspect, the dogmatic aspect of those traditions are not natural and are actually problematic for the world in general. And so that's their path. But Heather, your path is evolving as an individual and realizing and cultivating more peace. Sometimes the best medicine is that when they see someone like you and they see that you're completely happy and blissed out of your mind and this and that, then that's maybe something they'll never attain, because they'll always be boxed in by beliefs and agendas according to the so-called religion. And so, but you are kind of, you're getting out of that bad habit, and you're starting to observe yourself and your reactions and your emotions towards certain things. 1 second, guys. I'll just get a drink. Like I said, guys, I'm using this with the tea, the yin replenisher. It looks like this. So it's really dark. Anyway, put a few drops in there. I need some extra energy. 3 hours talking. Anyway. Natalie, self as a person, I suppose. The self, again, is as a person, Natalie, is an accumulative sense of self. It's the persona system that you have acquired due to living your life. Now, is that your true nature? No, it's not. It's an accumulative sense of self. Again, as the Eastern traditions say, it's part from your parents, part from education, socialization. It's a whole socialization process. Does it mean that there aren't genetic signatures in you that you have gained from your parents? Of course there are, but they themselves are part of that as well. So your natural self, your Atman, is beyond all of that. And so that's part of the process as a spiritual aspirant, especially in Eastern traditions. Heather, I want to be kind, but they are so pushy. Heather, well said. Yes. Just it's all about, as you said in the other part, just studying and watching how to meditate properly. I haven't started yet. I've been practicing non-reaction. It's difficult when your entire family is Christian. I bet, Heather. Sometimes there's some, from a real pragmatic sense, Heather, sometimes there's some conversations that you have to have with some people in your life, in your immediate surroundings, that they need to hear. Yeah. And you're on this whole path now, right? Like you said, you want to follow the path of peace. You want to meditate more. You want to study more. And so sometimes if you have to have a really honest conversation with those in your life who are trying to bring you down, because you can only take that for so long, right? When people gaslight you and they undermine you, that can only go on for so long. There has to be an honest conversation about, this is who I am now. Will you accept me for who I am, or will you just continue to think that I'm going to hell? There are a lot of things that, just tell them to watch my Taoism versus Christianity podcast, so they can get, they can have a look at some of the hypnosis that they've fallen under. And then they can start to see you, Heather, as just who you truly are. Yeah. Minus she is this or she is that. And that's a big problem, with beliefs in the world. They cause a lot of conflict, and we must not allow them to cause conflict. And if someone can't accept you like that, that's their problem. Like you said, it's your immediate family. It makes it really difficult. Because you're against it, right? You're against it. Heather, like I said, you probably know from listening to the live stream, for myself, teaching Eastern philosophy and spirituality has put me created a distance between me and my siblings. And so it's just a part of life in that sense, right? Like my two brothers and my sister, we don't really have a relationship anymore. And that's just the way it is, They can't accept what I do and what I talk about. And they're not even Christian, mind you. So they just, I don't know what they are, probably atheists, So I think that at the end of the day, Heather, if it keeps going like that, then you really have to have some sort of honest conversation that the people in your life have to accept who you are now. And if that means that you're going to hell, in air quotes, then so be it. Let them believe that. Yeah. When they see you blissed out of your mind and peaceful, that's the best medicine, and the realization that they will have. And Salubrious, your content is absolutely awesome. It's a lot of help for people like me who want to learn but have no clue about spirituality. And Salubrious, thank you. That means the world to me, my friend. Gary, Gary, drop the mic and leave the building. Is there anything that has cultivated more fear on this planet than the concept of hell? It's terrible. Gary has just nailed it. The thing, what Eastern spirituality expose about a lot of the Abrahamic faiths is, and other religions like them, is that you make people feel with the idea of hell, with the idea of sin, that humans aren't natural to the world, that they don't belong. And then as a result, our relationship to nature becomes extremely insensitive, as we see with the world now, right? So these are the problems that happen from believing such thought systems or belief systems, such as some of the Abrahamic faiths, right? So you are natural to the world. The Eastern spirituality tell you, sin, you're not punished for your sins, you're punished by your sins. It's all backwards in Christianity and those sorts of religions. And so we have to come to the understanding that we do belong. We are natural to the world. And Eastern spirituality takes it one step further. You are actually identical with the ultimate reality. It doesn't make you God itself, and God is a silly word to use here when we talk about Brahman and Tao, but it makes you identical with it, an expression of it, an integral part of the whole universe. You are. Doesn't mean you're special, but it makes you an integral part of the whole. Christianity don't teach you that. They teach you that you are punished for your sins. And if you don't believe, you're going to hell and so forth. Lyle, love your content. Thank you, my friend. Al Ogi, what do you think of social media? Whenever I use one, it brings out the ego in me, which causes, you said it, Al. Well, this is why I wrote this book, Spiritual Freedom in the Digital Age, How to Remain Healthy and Sane in a World Gone Mad. Shameless plug, but out in March 2022. I have a love-hate relationship with social media. It's good for me because I can converse with you guys and we can have a good relationship on it. And I think the way that we use it in particular is a very healthy way to use it. Like, well, I can only say for myself personally, because I don't have a phone, so I'm not engaged like, people like through Instagram and stuff like that. That's not my bag. I can't do it. I got too many other things on, and I have a life to live. I have my life to live. I'm not busy looking at other people's lives. So people always say to me, what's one thing you would change about the world? Well, it's kind of twofold in a sense. I mean, but I would say, like, how different the world would be so different without social media, right? And even the internet in general would be so different. And you have to come to the conclusion it'd be a much more peaceful place. But in saying that, it's here, and it doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. So it's about developing a healthy relationship with that. And I've heard a couple of political, no, not political, but a lot of philosophers and that speak about that. We're kind of in this like 20 to 30 year period where we're trying to normalize with all of this normal technology, with this new technology, which is, as you said, Al, it can bring out the worst in people, and it often does. Like, for example, like we went for thousands of years where cultures didn't intermingle. We didn't even know some cultures existed, and so forth and so on, right? And so naturally, there was a slow process of people, cultures mingling and getting to know each other, a natural process, right? Drop the internet into the equation, social media into the equation, and instant cultural clashes of culture. And then if one does not stop and think before they write things on social media, then they say the wrong things just based on their own perspective and their own beliefs. So it's a whole big conversation, Al, and that's why I wrote a whole book about it. So Judy, would you consider doing online meditations? I have considered that, Judy. Let me know who would be interested if that's something that any of you would be interested in. Heather, I'm so grateful you've been on here for that so long. Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Luther, thanks for doing the Q&A. I appreciate how you take the time to answer questions thoroughly. Luther, love you, my friend. Travis, I love the content and have many more questions. Unfortunately, I'm at work and have to hide every time I post. Trav, hope you're there. Hope you're okay there. Lao Tzu says the Tao is older than God. Did he believe in God as a creator, as an entity? No. There's no actual creator God in Eastern philosophy in general. Only Brahma, but it's a creative principle. And so, and again, if you look at it from the Hindu perspective, Trav, God is only the Ishvara level of the Hindu tradition, not the Brahman or the Tao level. So, no, Lao Tzu they don't have, in Taoism, there's no sort of ruler, and that's why there's no sin or no hell and so forth. Heather, you are so right. Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Thanks for sharing a bit about your family. Thank you. Nishant, good to have you with us. Even in India, it's difficult. As a college student, it's quite difficult to keep regular spiritual practice on without my family feeling I'll take up this. Yeah, that is a real problem in India, isn't it, Nishant? A lot of parents get really worried that their children are going to become a renunciate and follow the spiritual path. But look, I mean, it's innocent, right? It's innocent to a certain degree from your parents, but it's you also got to follow what's in your heart. I'm not saying that you should take up sannyas, but it's eventually it's up to you, isn't it? Heather, I have thought we are all connected for a long time. Christianity and other Abrahamic religions are fear-mongering, and it's so ridiculous. I get tired of the guilt and shame and murdering texts. Ah, yeah. It's tiring, isn't it, Heather? Exhausting. I am not hypnotized anymore. I am grateful for that. Heather, music to my ears, my friend. You belong. Trust me, you belong. No need to feel guilt. No need to feel shame. Obo, Jason, it's a wonderful thing to listen to your insightful philosophical life wisdom. Thank you, my friend. Being here strengthens me. Thank you. Do you think practicing yin makes us more susceptible to mold? To mold? Okay. You mean mold within the body? I'm assuming Obo. Vintage Violet, new to your channel. Thanks so much for sharing all you do. I've been a spiritual seeker for decades, but nothing has made as much sense as the Tao and the basic concept. Not Wu before of Wu. Yes. Vintage, thank you. Sorry, man, and Wu. Vintage, thank you. Always good to see new subscribers. Remember, everyone, if you're interested in seeing the replay of this live stream, they will be exclusive on Patreon. And I have exclusive content on Patreon for all my patrons. So, which helps the channel out, helps my work further progress. And remember, like I said, if any of you, to help the videos reach a wider audience, make sure you always comment on the videos and like. The algorithm seems to like that. So, and I know us contemplatives are not really concerned about those sort of semantics, but it does help. Travis, I'm not sure who's pissed off more by Eastern spirituality, Christians or atheists. Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, I don't know either. I would say Christians for sure. Atheists, yeah, I guess atheists too. Ryan, I'd be interested in online meditation. Thank you, Ryan. In Salubris, so far I have managed to stay away from social media except YouTube, but I must say that YouTube, even though it contains a lot of nastiness, is helped me to wake up. That's true. Otherwise, a person like me would never have been attracted to spirituality. Yeah. Look, out of the social medias in Cerberus, I think YouTube is the best and the worst. Yeah, because of how powerful the algorithm is. You can watch one video on making hash browns. Thousands of videos on making hash browns come up. Now, if someone watches a video on something to do with some sort of sensitive political situation, then thousands of those videos will pop up. And then you're off down the rabbit hole of media companies who are trying to sell you a narrative. It's very divisive. And so Eastern spirituality is about understanding that all of this BS of division in the world doesn't really exist. We are all one with the Tao. We are all Brahman. And so when you hear stupid media outlets and political commentators and this and that using certain sensitive, divisive techniques, then you need to really keep a distance, because it's going to inhibit your spiritual practice and poison your mind with infectious ideas that come from people who have a certain perspective of the world that's not the real perspective of the world. The real perspective of the world is that we are all part of one consciousness, and we are all ultimately the ultimate reality. And anything that tries to take you away from that is a distraction. And people who try to poison your mind with any other belief than that is a distraction. Yes, it's just dangerous. It can be dangerous. Nishant, while cultivation has made me feel much more connected to all beings, conversating to people becomes kind of annoying because you're always forced to pick ideas and give judgments on all things. Yes, that's right. That's right, Nishant. It can be exhausting. And so I would say choose your friends wisely and choose your interactions wisely, my friend. It can be exhausting. Yeah. And so when I mentioned this on a recent podcast that when I was at an old job 10, 11 years ago, people would always ask my opinion on things. And I don't really have opinions on things. I don't keep up with the news. I never was interested in politics. And I don't use anything about myself to play the victim. I get on with life and I just try to live as happily and peacefully as I can. And so that really annoys some people, Nishant. It really does. And so sometimes you got to be a bit firm in your perspective too. Yeah. Like I don't really have an opinion. I don't have a judgment on what you want me to say. That's not part of my psychological makeup. That's not my spirituality. But yeah, choose your interactions wisely. Heather, I'd be interested in more meditations. All right. Noted. Dazzling Chick, your channel is amazing and I appreciate you. Dazzling, love you, my friend. Obo, I'm living the Tao. I don't need to study the book. Hilarious. I remember it's a classic. It really is. If you guys ever had the day to manage my YouTube channel, you would see so many comments like that. Always this game of one-upsmanship, like, I'm at one with the Tao. All you do is talk about it. Well, you made a judgment and a distinction that you are better than me. Interesting. And Celebris, you nailed it. Thank you, my friend. Ryan says, so is that what karma is? That you are not punished for your sins, but are punished by your sins? The good/bad of karma always confused me. An amoral tradition. Yeah, that's you're kind of right, Ryan. You're kind of right. The thing is that, see, karma has been confused a lot with just being this like cause and effect dichotomy, right? When karma karma means action, and karma in the Bhagavad Gita means the yoga of action, but not being attached to your actions. So karma comes from the root Sanskrit word kri, which means action, to act. And what karma essentially means is not really cause and effect. It means inherent within your actions are the effects that you will experience. So it's a science of making you act authentically, right? Without acting with emotion and with judgments and with bias and with agenda, which will have a boomerang effect. There's no doubt about it. And we've all experienced it, right? So karma also it is talking about also your unconscious actions and reactions to the world. So those things within our samskaras and our subconscious and how we react and so forth to the world, which causes a lot of trouble. Yeah. And so and you got to get it out of the mindset of good or bad karma. Yeah, of good or bad karma, because it's more so about, because it's just action. So you could say probably positive or negative, because you're going to experience the negative or the positive from certain karmic acts, right? And so, but the whole science of karma is about cleaning your actions and reactions. It's about cleansing them so that you act authentically in each and every situation, like appropriately and immediately to each and every situation. Ryan, I have a video on karma. 2 videos, 3 videos, maybe 4 videos on karma. Type in my name and in karma, and you'll see the yoga of action. I think it's called Karma, the Yoga of Action. I recommend go and have a look at that one. Oh, Tashi. Yes, this is a common problem. Do you know why my sleep is disturbed whenever I rest as the emness? Yes, a lot of people have had this problem. And I've actually heard a lot of teachers say, don't do it when you're going to sleep at night. Of course, it's an either or scenario, right? You can abide or you can just allow the mind to do its thing. Yeah. And so sometimes the mind will hold you hostage and you'll have all of these thoughts and stuff like that, and you stay up for ages. Sometimes what happens when you remain as the emness, so to speak, is it can become an intellectual game because you're forcing your awareness to abide. Yeah. When the body and mind is just like at the end of the day, and it's just like, bro, enough. I'm done. But it's either or. Some people actually can be in emness when they go to sleep, and they can sleep very deeply, but not all the time. Yeah. So, I would say try and not. I would say just observe your mind when you go to sleep, and just try to like not sort of like have any sort of practice of self-inquiry. Just observe, even which is kind of self-inquiry, so to speak, but it's not forcing your mind to be like to abide, because it can. Some people, when they go to sleep, it because you are tired too, it can be a little bit of a struggle for your awareness to do its thing normally. Luther, have you ever read the Quran or the Christian Bible? Do you have anything to say about Islam specifically? How is Islam different from the other Abrahamic religions, Christianity and Islam? They're not much different. They're all Abrahamic faiths, Luther. And yes, I have read both. And do I have anything to say about Islam specifically? Look, some things about Islam that are good, that probably differs to Christianity, especially not so much to Judaism, is the very dedicated approach of the believers, right? At least they are very sincere in how they practice. As we can't say too much about some Christians, right? And in Judaism, it's the same too. But again, like the Abrahamic faiths are diametrically opposed philosophically to the Eastern traditions, because I mean, I have a friend who lives in Indonesia, right? And he's on the path that everyone here is on, right? He's on the spiritual path, follows the path of the great Eastern traditions. But then when his Muslim friends say to him, "So, are you Muslim?" And he's like, "No." And they say, "Are you Christian?" And he says, "No." And they say, "What are you?" I don't know religion. And they say, "You're Christian then?" And he's like, "No." I mean, they go through this whole game, right? And so, but he says that in some of the communities in Indonesia that he lives, that Muslims have kind of, in some sense, a bit of a temperament of Christians. That they have their inside group, and we only have to have a look at the history of Islam, right, with its version of demographic swamping as well. It does have doctrinal privileges within the Quran. It just does. The Bible and the Quran are from the same template, and so hence you have the invasion of India, yeah, and the oppression of Hindus within India, starting with the Muslims and with the British. And so it's the same mentality. There is the doctrinal privilege. And does it mean that there aren't good, Muslims and Christians aren't good people? Of course they're good people. But the problems occur when we have this idea that there is us and them. Yeah. And it's all based on a doctrine and a dogma, as Heather was talking about before. So these are where problems occur. There's a lot more that we could talk about that. Dazzling Chick, I have no social medias and never have other than YouTube. It's been one of the wisest things. That's awesome, Dazzling. Awesome. Before I became an author, or before I had a book out there, until 2011, I had no social media. I tried Facebook a couple of times and I couldn't understand it. I was living in India and my friends in Australia are like, hey man, you got to get on Facebook. We can keep in contact. And I was saying to them, this is ego book. This isn't a Facebook. I was telling them I don't really have a story to tell. So that was me in my younger days, back in mid 20s and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I don't know. YouTube can be very beneficial, but it can also be toxic. And as for like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, I mean, Twitter is like, who said it? Twitter is like a toilet wall. You know, like in a toilet wall, people they just write anything on a toilet wall. Twitter is like this. And Twitter can be very aggressive, yeah. Peaceful me. Hello, Jason. Can I jive Stoicism together with Taoism? You and Guyang are so amazing explaining the Tao. Thank you, Peaceful me. Can I jive? Well, you can. I mean, there are elements, right? Like, but it's the same with every tradition. Like when we look at the contentment and humility, and you can blend certain aspects of the traditions, not just Stoicism and Taoism too. You can blend Vedanta into that, Buddhism if you want, because they all have that. But the problems occur when philosophically Stoicism and Taoism aren't that similar. Yeah. And there's a whole different metaphysical frameworks and this and that. Look, and I'm biased, as you know, so I would recommend you dive deep into Taoism. And the good things about Stoicism and why a lot of people like Stoicism is the practicality of the tradition. And I can sympathize with that. I've studied the tradition a long time ago and I enjoy Stoicism, but I just feel that Eastern philosophy offers a little bit extra. Not a little bit extra, I should say a lot extra. So look, you can, but I would say, if you dive more into Taoism, then maybe Stoicism will maybe even be more beneficial for you. Ryan, will do. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Obo, no one explains the way better. Obo, thank you for your appreciation. Maybe Eckhart Tolle. Love it. Heather, I'm having a hard time distinguishing gurus on YouTube. Is there kind of a way to tell whether someone is genuine? Yes. I had one of these questions earlier, Heather, actually. Also on the sleep topic, I have crazy demon dreams. Does it mean something? It can, but it can also mean, like a lot of our dreams are the product of our own experiences and our subconscious. So from what you've been telling me, Heather, recently, is that you're having probably a lot of family issues, especially because of your spiritual orientation. And this may be also contributing to the crazy dreams. Yeah. But also food and everything. There's a lot of things that can contribute to crazy dreams. It's not as simple as what we think. Dreams are very complex. I know a lot of people in the New Age try to simplify it, like, oh yeah, you dreamed this because this and that, but you might have had like a Coca-Cola before bed, and it was very bad for the acid in your stomach, which makes you dream crazy things. So we don't want to make it more than what it seems. Yeah. Dreams is one of those things that, like in a lot of Eastern traditions, they don't really focus a lot on. But then you have some of these traditions that have lucid dreaming as part of it. Like if we look at Vajrayana Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, there's like a lucid dreaming component. And I have explored some of that, but I don't know if there's much really into it in terms of realization. Preston, that makes no sense about the Rudraksha seeds. I got mine from participating in Mahashivaratri festival online from the Isha Foundation. I got 2 of them and gave one to my sister in hopes it helps. Awesome. Preston, I love hearing that. Dazzling Chick, thank you. Thank you, Dazzling. Heather, why did people come up with the idea that we need to belong to one group? Like, I struggled with belonging to a group. I like the idea of Eastern Path. Heather, me too. I always felt uncomfortable, and I felt there was it was disingenuous when I was in particular groups, and I couldn't make sense of it. And as I got older, and as I studied more, and as I explored more of this path, group mentality came about, evolutionary speaking, because of it was safe and demographic swamping. Yeah. So the group ensured your security and your survival. And so then what happens as we become more complex, as we evolve, that is overlaid into ideologies, overlaid into things like, nations and all sorts of things. And so that's where a lot of that begins. It's an evolutionary desire for survival that created sort of like group ideologies and group things and groupthink. And then, as I said, it becomes more complex as we became more complex as a species, and we started to have more of these ideological forms of structures and frameworks of the universe and so forth and so on. So, whereas the Eastern Path is in some sense, a very solo path. So there's a Sanskrit word called kaivalya in Sanskrit. So like it's this kind of like this ultimate aloneness that we actually really are. Like when you're born in your birthday suit, right? When you die the same, right? So like the entry into the world and the exit out of this world is exactly the same. The roller coaster in between is very different, yeah, and can have a lot of twists and turns and be as annoying as hell sometimes, right? So, but nevertheless, even on that roller coaster, you're still sitting in your own seat. No one can sit in that seat for you. And so the problem, the group thinks has got to such a crazy perspective now where people use it to play the victim. They use it to gain an upper hand on people. And in Eastern spirituality, it's you have to stand firmly on your own 2 feet and never play the victim. Yeah, never play the victim, because you trust the world and you understand that you belong to the world. You are one with it. And we do all have lessons along the way. Yeah. And some more harsh than others. And sometimes we have to experience sometimes terrible things, like you have to have the experience, Heather, with the family dynamic that you have at the minute. So Fritz me. What I find personally difficult beyond Christians are atheists. You wouldn't think secular humanists would be so rigid. Love it. Yes. Aldebaran, Tears of Shiva, Rudraksha beads. That's right, my friend. Preston, what kind of tea are you drinking? Preston, I'm drinking Spring Dragon Longevity Tea by Ron Tea Garden. I've been drinking this tea for probably since 2011. And it's caffeine free. Most of my books have been fueled on this tea. And I boosted up with this Yin Replenisher. It's from Spring Dragon as well, or Dragon Herb, sorry. And this is I should do a video on the 3 treasures in Taoism. So Jing, Qi, and Shen, but that's probably for another time. But it's full of adaptogenic herbs, Preston, full of just pure goodness, yeah. Nishant, should I start learning Chinese if I want to go deep into Neidan? You don't necessarily need to, Nishant. You don't need to. There's a lot of good books on Neidan, Neigong out there. My friend Damo Mitchell, he's got a book, got a few good books actually on the practice. If you want to get deeper into it, again, doesn't mean that that's gonna doesn't mean that those practices are Taoism either. Though I have to reaffirm that. A lot of people think that if you practice Tai Chi Chuan and so forth, that it's Taoist. And it's like, no, that's just a part and a kind of a practice of Taoism. It's like saying Hatha Yoga is Hinduism. It's not, right? So Insalubris, in India at least, I have seen and met a lot of Muslims who seem to me to be borderline delusional and quite intolerant. Christians are usually much nicer and are more accepting, at least outwardly. I've met I've met Muslims and Christians also in India as well. Certain different parts, though, in Slubris, as you know. There's some parts in the south where Christians are pretty intolerant, especially towards Hindus. I mean, Hindus are just treated like, Muslims and Christians treat Hindus like they're idiots. And the problem is India is Bharat. It's a Hindu nation. Anyway. Preston, I've been drinking a masala chai I got, and it's been really nice. I'll definitely check it out. Preston, masala chai is my favorite tea, but I just don't drink it all the time, yeah? During the podcast, you'll probably see me drinking it. Gayung, she makes a killer masala chai. You'll have to try it one day. She learned in India, and she knows the deal. I let her take care of that, and I make simple tea bag teas like this. Dazzling Chick, any advice on those of us who are single but would like to meet a spiritual minded person? I was hesitant to ask this, but I genuinely would love to know your thoughts, etc. This is a very difficult one to answer, Dazzling. It's what does Will say here in response? Short story version, Dazzling. A man searched the world for the perfect woman but couldn't marry her. She was looking for the perfect man. Okay. Will's got a point there, I guess. Especially with spiritual minded person, Dazzling, it's difficult. Like I've seen, the funny thing is that, and I saw this a lot when I was younger, right? When I would go to satsangs when I was younger, and I would see people at satsang, and they would be married, but they would drift apart, yeah? Or one really resonates with spirituality and the other one drifts apart. Sometimes when a relationship matures and then people learn different things, sometimes it pulls the relationship apart. Your advantage here is you're single, which gives you an opportunity because you have a spiritual foundation to meet someone maybe on the same level. Now, depending on where you live, I'm not sure, how possible that is. You'd have to tell me where you live, but I know that if you're in sort of a spiritual surrounding, but you know what I mean? Like, so for example, if you were in India, right, and you were living in somewhere like Tiruvannamalai, and you're in somewhere too, and I'm like, and there's a lot of people who are sincere about spirituality there. There's also a lot of people who aren't, right? So it's very hard to really navigate. Like, for example, I had a neighbor called William, right? And not the Will in the chat box, but a guy called William. And he was from Texas. And he was a really strange guy. He would go all the way, he would travel all the way from Texas to Tiruvannamalai to pick up girls. The really strange thing, yeah, like Tiruvannamalai in India, like you don't go to Tiruvannamalai pick up girls. I mean, this is the home of Arunachala, Ramana Maharishi. You can go to Goa for that or somewhere like that, but he would do that. So you never know, right? But I'd say if you go to somewhere like that, there's a high possibility. Let's push him to the side, but you would meet someone really genuine about it, really genuine about spirituality. So your advantage is that you're single, yeah. And my advice, also dazzling, is that this is for either men or women. If the person, say, they are spiritually minded, but they're not grounded, that may be somewhat problematic, because you want to meet someone who in the end is still a human, yeah? And so that you can live a human life, without like any sort of posturing in the relationship. You don't want to get yourself in a relationship where there's games of spiritual one-upsmanship. You got to be able to see each other from heart to heart, and not where like, oh yeah, but you did this, so this means that you're not as enlightened as me. And people get into these crazy things, yeah. So try to find someone who has a spiritual grounding, but is not a flaky person, so to speak, yeah. Because sometimes what I've noticed, especially in spiritual communities, is, say, new agey, flaky people tend to be a little, loose with their relationships, and you want to find a genuine, in your case, a genuine man who is grounded, but is soft, but still has his masculinity, yeah. So he's got a perfect balance of yin and yang, so to speak. Yeah, in Salubris, that's okay. Yeah, that's your experience. Yeah, I know that's the case for a lot of people too, and I've experienced that too. Don't get me wrong, but I've experienced it also the other way around as well. That was kind of what my point was, I guess. AJS, thank you, my friend. Jason, thanks for all the inspiration. Thank you for the super chat, AJS. Appreciate it. Heather, gosh, thanks so much for your answering all my questions. I deal with that group think in my business too. It's just crazy dynamic in my life. How do you get those beads? I have so many more questions. You can find them online. Heather, you type in Rudraksha Mala beads. I'm trying to think of someone I would highly recommend. Maybe if you go to the Isha Foundation, you might be able to find them a good Rudraksha Mala, but you can get them anywhere. Preferably, I would like to give you some Rudraksha Mala if we were together in India, because it's coming from the source, and it's much more authentic, yeah. My wife is very logical, science-oriented, and really doesn't get Tao at all. I accept her as she is, and I love her just the same. What else can one do? Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. The maturity to accept each other, yeah? That's a dime a dozen these days. Luther, why can't the Abrahamic religions have their beliefs and also acknowledge respect that there are other valid paths as well? Do you think this us and them mentality will eventually fade away? It will eventually, Luther, in a large scale, yeah, because a lot of Abrahamic faiths that, I mean, people don't know this, but there's a big decline in membership, so to speak, because people aren't really vibing with the whole us first them thing anymore. And I always I never understood this, because even in conversations with people of the Abrahamic faith and explaining that, why can't you just be tolerant and accept other people, and that people have different views, people, they just can't understand it, because there's again the doctrinal privilege. It says in the books, right? Anyone who's a non-believer goes to hell, so we ought to convert others, right? And I've said this on the live stream before. Sam Harris, there's a 10-minute video where Sam Harris destroys this evangelical Christian, where Sam says, so you're saying to me that 1 billion Hindus, so God placed 1 billion Hindus in India. Now, culturally, they're Hindu. They had no contact for thousands of years with Christians or other faiths. So this sick God of yours put the Hindus there to go to hell. It sounds stupid when you say it, right? So when you use common sense and you see that, you're just like, okay, they need to reinvigorate their traditions, the Abrahamic faiths. They really do. And they have to take out the doctrinal privilege. Once they take out the doctrinal privilege and accept other traditions as they are, then we can have true interfaith dialogue. We can't have interfaith dialogue as Vedanta want when we have the traditions that still think that they have a privilege over the other. It's stupid. It's like two kids at school arguing over which toy is better. You know, we are adults here. Yes, Heather, yes, you will. I appreciate it. Be great to meet you in person. Dazzling Chick, thank you, Dazzling. It is a hard question, yeah? I am in KY, USA. Where's KY? What state is that? When you say it, I'll think, oh man, I'm so stupid. Anyway. Oh, Kentucky. Okay. Okay. Exactly. See, when you say it, I sound so stupid. So, guys, I'm going to have to go because it's 3 hours and 53. I mean, whew. Some work has been gone. If I haven't answered your question, I'm sorry. If I had more time and my throat was not so parched, I could keep going. But I hope you've all enjoyed today, yeah? Thank you for everyone who subscribed. Thank you for everyone who joined, who dropped a super chat. Highly appreciate it. If you want to watch the replay, remember, head on over to my Patreon. And I'll tell you all now, I'm going to do this fortnightly because I think a lot of people benefit from it. And I actually enjoy talking to you all as well, yeah? I think the whole month long, the once a month is a bit maybe too long in the tooth. This is not hard for me, yeah? I enjoy talking to you all. And I really enjoy it. And I hope you enjoy. Hope you're having a good day. Thank you, everyone. And I will see you actually this Sunday. There's a new podcast. Guyang and I will start to dissect the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Yeah. So we're going to go through the first 11 sutras. Highly recommend you watch this. The science of yoga is very important to understand Taoism, Hinduism, and Buddhism, because it's one of the original sciences of the tradition, of the Eastern traditions. So I hope you all tune in on Sunday. And wherever you are in the world, have a good day, have a good night, have a good sleep, and I'll see you in the Preston. Do it. Yes, I could do a try tutorial. I don't know who would watch it. But anyway, thank you, everyone. Shanti, shanti, shanti. Namaskar, namaste. Bye.